2024 Northampton County Council meeting. I've asked Mr. Kraft to lead us in the pledge.
I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Mr. Heckman, do you want to lead us in a moment of silence or prayer?
What? No, it's summer solstice, so anybody who observes that or has something in their mind they want to revere, take a moment of silence. Thank you. I don't know, caught me off guard.
Thank you. Let me see where I'm at here. Where's my papers? Ms. Shafnisky, will you call the roll?
Mr. Brown?
Here.
Mr. Corpora?
Here.
Mr. Giovanni?
Here.
Mr. Goffredo?
Here.
Mr. Heckman?
Here.
Ms. Keegan?
Here.
Mr. Kraft?
Here.
Ms. Vargo Hefner?
I'm here.
And Mr. Warren?
Here.
All present.
Thank you. Courtesy of the floor, we have a few people that have signed up. If you would state your name, the city where you reside, and they have 5 minutes to speak. First, I have Deborah Biro from Nazareth, Pennsylvania.
Do I approach the?
Yes, please. You need to be on the mic. Thank you.
Hi, good evening. My name is Deborah Biro. I live in Nazareth, Pennsylvania. And I know that there was an election integrity group set up with the county council, and I was just wondering what the status of that was. If you had an election integrity group set up,
Yes.
is anything happening with that group, or is there any? I was just wondering what the status was.
We had a meeting the other day.
Oh, is that open to the public?
Yes.
Okay, when are those meetings?
They are usually every other month. And this month it was held on a Tuesday because of Juneteenth, so it's either on a Wednesday. We advertise those publicly. So,
Okay,
and you
okay.
can always call the office. So I assume we will not be needing one until August, I'm hoping. Maybe September.
okay.
But and those are also published on the website as well in
Okay.
advance.
Okay. Thank you. The other question I
They're
had.
also, I'm sorry, they're also taped. So there's a YouTube recording of every meeting that's been held.
I just lost what I was going to ask. I think that's it. I had a question, but it went from my head. Thank
If you
you.
want to come back at the end, I'll give you a time, because normally I don't engage in answers, but it was a very specific
Okay.
answer, so I'll give you a chance to double dip. Next, we have Steven Barata.
Good afternoon again. I'm back. A little sooner than you thought, I guess. I was asked to come here. I spoke briefly with the county executive about his project, and I have to leave. There's a viewing I have to be at. And I've spoken to the county executive previously and to the president judge about space issues in this building because our office is very, very tight, and space is a premium for everybody. And it's just difficult sometimes to expand and get appropriate space. The DA's office is spread around the building. We have our detectives down in the basement, the Crime Victims Council, and the Turning Point advocates for victims should be in our office, but they're in separate offices on the first floor. And we also, since we don't have a child advocacy center, we have space in the controller's building. I think that's maybe 684 or 688 across the street. And I mean, we're appreciative of the space, and it's painted and it's nice, but it's not good space. The tiles have stains and mold, and the mold's coming out of the, or it looks like it's been coming out of the air vents overhead. But we have that for our children. We try to make it living room-like or comfortable for kids because it's not appropriate for them to be in the DA's office with no space being interviewed about these very traumatic and sensitive events. So when the county executive called me and told me about his plans that he's thinking about moving some of his offices out of the courthouse, that's good. I don't want to leave the courthouse. We're going to remain here. But any room anywhere would be greatly appreciated. And the only way right now that I think we're going to be able to get space is if we manage to move some of our administrative space outside the building. So for that reason, I'm in support of that. And, you know, we're going to have to expand at some point because I think all the offices are at a premium. There's just no room. So thank you very much, and I appreciate your consideration in this matter.
Thank you, sir. Next, we have Don Moore from Plainfield Township.
Good evening, Council. I'm speaking as a citizen, former supervisor, Plainfield Township, for myself. I'm back to give you more information regarding the planned slate-built comprehensive plan being drafted for 9 Northampton County municipalities. Plainfield's obtained a $75,000 grant in 2019 to update the municipal plan we have with Wind Gap and Penargil. It was then reported the county wanted to withdraw that grant and have Plainfield pursue Plan Slate Bill. If we didn't comply, future funding might be withheld or might be impacted, we were told. This project has not gone well at all. As I pointed out in March of this year here, Lower Mount Bethel voted to withdraw in February. Ms. Bradley told the steering committee in March that LVPC would follow up with Lower Mount Bethel to see if they would remain in the plan. They already voted to withdraw. Only a few weeks prior to the June steering committee meeting a few weeks ago, did someone finally reach out to Lower Mount Bethel? And the answer was no. We don't want to come back in. Multiple steering committee meetings have been canceled this year. Plainfield Township hired a professional consultant to review the draft in the fall of 2022. We were told multiple municipal comprehensive plans over 6 municipalities usually fail. The draft is too vague. The township may have to create additional planning documents to meet our needs. The future land use plan is the most important element of the comprehensive plan. I'll talk about more in a second. Demographic data should be integrated into the plan, or if in a separate document, it must be referenced frequently throughout the plan. When the draft was released in June 2022, there was no demographic data in it at all. It took 2 months to be told that was published in a document in late 2019, and it could be referenced in the plan. I asked why it could not be integrated into the plan, and Ms. Bradley said the state has taken the position that funding of comprehensive plans could be withheld if demographic data is not broken out in a separate document, which sounds very odd. I called the state, and they said, we have no idea what you're talking about. The fact is, it turns out the demographic data collected early on was put in a separate document in our case due to a grant deadline, but it was just an excuse. I questioned the absence of maps in the plan, and an LVPC planning consultant stated, but you believe some plans have soil maps? Well, yeah, townships is very important. Soils, steep slopes, hydrology. Conventional plans have these. When asked in mid-2022 whether the future land use plan used a totally different convention than the land use plans of all 10 municipalities' current plans, Ms. Bradley stated in reference to Plainfield's, that land use plan could be found to be illegal because it's like a zoning map. Yet the LVPC never mentioned this criticism in reviews of several plans it reviewed for Forks, Palmer, Lower Mount Bethel recently. In one steering committee meeting, an LVPC rep finally stated it can be done either way, to which a Plainfield rep asked, if it can be done either way, and nobody else has a preference, why can't it be done the way we want it? We never got an answer. It takes more work to do it. That's the answer. Ms. Bradley nodded her head in agreement at a steering committee meeting when I observed that it appeared a lot of work would need to be done following adoption that would normally be done during creation of the plan. At a meeting between LVPC and Plainfield in February 2023, Ms. Bradley stated, Don, we will give you what we want, a land use plan similar to the Southwest Lehigh plan, which she had created. This didn't happen. Instead, 10 detailed insets were added, apparently massaged land use maps from each of our current comprehensive plan maps with no explanation how they were generated. The overall future land use plan retains a totally different format with no developed land use categories, such as industrial, residential, et cetera. Furthermore, the 10 detailed insets each have category conventions from the respective municipality instead of a uniform categories. There's 10 different legends. At a recent steering committee meeting, Ms. Bradley stated all the concerns Plainfield has brought up have been addressed with Solicitor Backenstow, our board solicitor. Ms. Bradley here is referring to a phone conversation she had with him in roughly August of 2023, and her statement's simply not true. Plainfield Township received no response to the letters we sent in August and September of 2023. At the June 12, 2024 Plainfield board meeting, this matter was discussed, and Solicitor Backenstow objected to the characterization made by Ms. Bradley. He stated that only one matter had been worked through with Ms. Bradley in that August conversation, and he has never seen the August and September letters with all of her other concerns. Ms. Bradley has funding and planning objectives as the head of the Lehigh Valley Planning Commission, but each municipality has its local objectives, and LVPC is our consultant. When acting as a professional planning consultant, the LVPC should respect the concerns and objectives of the customer, the municipalities. I feel there's been a major conflict in this regard, and Plainfield Township's most serious concerns have been consistently ignored for going on over a year.
1 minute.
At Plainfield's June 12th board meeting, the board voted to send a letter indicating that Plainfield is not planning to move forward with the intermunicipal agreement in which you align your zoning, which they would love to see us do. But when I was on the board, we were asking them, we've got these concerns, and we never got them addressed. So, I mean, she actually said recently, I don't care what Plainfield does. I don't care if you pull out. She said that in the last month or two, never having addressed our concerns. And they're putting a condition in that only if our concerns are addressed will we move forward. Well, you know, we tried that already in late last year, and they were never addressed. I'd be happy to stay after, if I can stay that long. I got a newborn puppy, to discuss our, you know, this with somebody. I had a few people stay last time. It's a really serious problem, and I've never ever seen a professional consultant deal with, you know, we worked with multiple, and they're all excellent, responsive, and it's the exact opposite here. I wanted to bring it to your attention. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Biro, did you remember your question?
I'm good, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak to courtesy of the floor? Mr. Kraft? Thank you. I saw that. I missed that. And I need to state that the minutes will be up for approval at the next meeting. At this time, I'd like to call for an executive session to discuss a personnel matter. Can I call for the vote for that? Can I, do I need a second? Motion.
Second.
Second, thank you.
Motion, whatever they call it.
Second?
Thanks.
Yeah, I thought he seconded. I'm sorry.
I shouldn't, so thank you.
He made the motion, he seconded. There you go.
We're all set.
All right.
Don't we need to vote?
Ms. Varga Hefner,
Yes.
Mr. Gafredo,
Yes.
Mr. Giovanni,
Yes.
Mr. Heckman,
Yes.
Ms. Keegan,
Yes.
Mr. Kraft. Mr. Warren,
Yes.
Mr. Brown,
Yes.
Mr. Corpora.
Yes.
Motion passes by 9-0.
Okay.
I get my headache right here, right as
We went over that.
then she started doing all that stuff. She's like, oh, this isn't that hard. I was like, well, I know college level might be a little different. She's like, well, I'm gonna high school. And he's kind of like 84. Like, you know, from HC, so
So my older is graduated from Pitt, and you can work and he's like a real cool. He's still lives in my house. Because my girlfriend is a year younger, and she's got another tutor, she's got another college. So he's not sure if he wants to live. This, you know, but I mean, it's like, he's not sure. So my youngest, so I mean, what we've done is,
Yes.
this is the kind of one, put it somewhere else. And so he expressed a mantra. There you go. He's great. Here's the worst part of that. She said, do you want to do it?
I wonder, I was like, don't even think about it. I said, I bought my house, we put so much more money in it. Even $900 a month was our payment. I said, we put some money in it. I said, we did it, it's worth it. I said, go on. See if you get anywhere near $900 a month. And she's like, no, Dad, I know, it's fine. It's like, yeah.
I understand.
I'm not sure. There's 8 others. That's what happened.
Okay. All right, so for the record, it's 6:48. We're returning from executive session to discuss personnel matter, and no action was taken. Thank you. Mr. McClure, do you have a report this evening?
Good evening. I want to start small and end big because I think the small thing I want to tell you about is actually quite huge. When we arrived, we were using 43,050 reams of paper. That was 21,525,000 pieces of paper, which weighed 86,100 pounds. Last year, the last full year we have data for, we used 16,400 reams of paper, all the way down from 43,000. We used 8,200,000 pieces of paper, all the way down from 21,525,000 pieces of paper, and the weight went from 86,000 to 32,000. So on our way to paperless 2025, we are making tremendous progress. I mean, people talk about, they deride saving trees, things like that. We're actually saving trees around here, and I think there is a good chance we'll be paperless by the end of 2025. And I also think by the end of 2025, we need a new facility on this campus. We need a new building, and we need a parking garage attached to that building. We need the parking garage attached to that building because our garage is at the end of its useful life. We've seen, Mr. Mealy has previously demonstrated, chunks of it continue to fall on a daily basis. It is a danger to our vehicles. It's a danger to our visitors. It is, while risk is still very low, chance for personal injury due to the fact that our garage is deteriorating, and 2 or 3 years of useful life. The time for kicking the can down the road on this is over. Additionally, we've been talking about for at least 2 years the need for space in the Human Services building. In the Human Services Building, we have actually converted closets to office space. And, we've talked about the additional staff that has been added in children and youth, for example, that we are fully intending to fill those slots. And when those slots get filled, there will be no room for those people to work at the Human Services Building on Emmerich Boulevard. About a year ago, we began to look for space to rent to put the folks who are overflowing out of the Human Services Building. We got a quote of about $2.7 million a year to rent the kind of space we needed to rent to house the number of people we needed to rent. So that got us thinking about the building part of this project. Then we also started to think about our elections division and how, in the first instance, terribly inconvenient it is to be running an election in 4 different rooms on 2 different floors in this building. You've heard from the registrar indicating that he believes that we need a new elections office. Additionally, I believe, and I'm not the only one who believes, that the way we have our elections set up in our buildings at this time is insecure. And, we just had a meeting the other night where we talked about our election integrity committee. And certainly, I think one of the things that we would want to make sure we did with respect to securing the integrity of our elections is to make sure that when we're conducting our elections, we're in the most secure place. And the way to do that is to create an elections division office in our new facility that would be that secure. And again, it's not just my opinion. Additionally, you heard from the district attorney tonight. They are busting out at the seams. They need more space. With a new building, we can accommodate the district attorney. We can also accommodate the growth in the courts. The courts are always seeking new room for their various offices that they need. We would be able to accommodate that in this building. We would be able to finally bring the controller across the street. I know that's not a compelling reason for some people, but I have to tell you, we can't make that building they're in ADA accessible. We can't build a ramp. We literally cannot build a ramp so that folks with a handicap can get inside that building. It's an anachronism to me. We could easily bring them across the street. And these are just some of the innumerable reasons why it would be in our interest to move forward building this building, building this garage, and I think is an imperative. And we, with our current financial situation, can afford to do this. It will not, borrowing the money to do this project at this time will not materially affect our ability to pay for it. Thank you. I don't have anything else.
Are there any questions for Mr. McClure? Mr. Heckler?
All right, I want to thank, this is what the quarterly report is going to look like, and this is what I got, which is fine, I understand. It'll do the job, chiefly. But when you say paperless, all I would ask is, it doesn't matter what I want, whether somebody respects me or not, but we're the legislative branch, and the legislative branch has to be respected. Before a unilateral decision is made affecting the legislative branch of government, I think they should be contacted. We always got the quarterly reports, financial reports. I was unaware we had to ask for them now. Some people want to see it on paper so they can sit down with a cup of coffee and compare numbers. Maybe one day when our laptops we have work great, that may not be necessary, but most of them haven't. But I do think, though, that in this case, council, through its offices, should have been contacted before the administration made a unilateral decision to just say, we're doing this for the county council as well.
Okay, let me check on that. And by the way, I did not bring up the paperless 2025. I just got these numbers, and I wanted to share them with council and the public because I think it's really great that we're going paperless. And I understand that you want to have something in your hand, and I appreciate that. Yeah. Yep. So I just want to check on something. Steve, when did that become the practice of not printing the booklet?
It became came to practice when the human service money needed to be maneuvered around under the block grants. We stopped writing the narratives and then.
When was that?
2021.
Okay.
You haven't gotten a report in 2022?
Mr. Kusick would ask them.
All right, well, I'm asking,
Yeah, that's not a problem. It's not even a prerogative, that's fine.
I'm not asking as one,
Yeah.
I'm asking as a member of the governing board of the county and a colleague of the branch of government.
You may have that however you want it.
I'm just asking for the respect of asking us before decisions made that affects us, that's all. And as far as the space, I agree with you, you've told us this before a few times. And I'm concerned though, because I know there's been a lot of controversy over the election integrity committee. But I just wanted to say, I was listening to what you said, and you said you don't believe the elections are not secure at the moment. That concerns me that you would say that, given where we're headed. I understand it would be better to have a better space, but I was sort of concerned with.
They could be more secure.
It could be more secure.
Yes, by not having the elections conducted in 3 different rooms on 2 different floors in this building.
But I think we can tell people this November that we're doing everything in our power to make sure everything is secure, even before this is built.
Yes, we deputize already deputies to become elections workers so that they can collect the ballots.
Yeah.
They'll be trained further in escorting folks and ballots around the courthouse so that we'll be as secure as possible, but we'll be more secure in a new building.
I don't disagree with that. Thank you, that's all.
Thank you, sir.
Any other questions for Mr. McClure? Thank you.
Thank you.
Where am I? Under old business, we first have the public hearing of an ordinance entitled, "An Ordinance Amending the 2024 Northampton County Budget, Community and Economic Development Administration, E-911 Act 12, Interconnect, Administration Hazmat Act 165, Sheriff, Court Administration, Juvenile Justice Center, Human Services, Veterans Affairs, Human Services, Homeless Assistance, Human Services, Development Fund, Human Services, Children, Youth, and Families, Human Services, Area Agency on Aging, Human Services, Health Choices, Human Services, Mental Health, Human Services, Developmental Programs, Human Services, Early Intervention, Human Services, Drug and Alcohol. Mr. Kapora and Kraft introduced this ordinance at the June 6, 2024 meeting. Are there any questions or comments from the public regarding this ordinance? Hearing and seeing none, are there any questions or discussion from council? I have some questions.
Yeah.
And I would probably need Mr. Barron to answer them. Thank you. I have questions regarding the sections under Human Services where it states American Rescue Plan. There's several
Yes.
sections that there's an increase in funds, or there's it looks like increase. What fund is that coming from?
It is the state money that comes through the block grant for human services. So it's state money that we don't ever touch. It's money that is awarded via grant in the block grant program that the state government is dishing out to certain counties.
So that's coming from their American Rescue Plan fund?
Yes.
And that's why it's labeled as such
Yes.
in all of those categories?
Yes, it is.
And that's it, right? Because they're all
Correct.
under Human Services. And I know that during the time that was doled out, that they had their own level of funds for certain areas, so.
That is correct.
Okay, I just needed that clarification. Thank you. Does
Mr.
anybody
Barron?
else have any
Yeah,
questions?
while you're still up, what do we have left in our CARES and ARP funds?
Unallocated $1 million.
Unallocated 1 million?
Yes, and it was originally allocated for agency nurses and
Okay, and is there a time frame on that, Steve?
no, we took the money back as revenue replacement. So the federal reporting, you will see us now with all zeros in our federal reports. The money is allocated as such by county resolution and our budget ordinances. Therefore, that $1 million just kind of sits.
So other than that $1 million and what the state may or may not have to give to us, that's it for these funding streams?
Correct.
Thank you.
Mr. Gafreda?
Mr. Barron, in the Human Services Health Choices, that looks like we're drawing a majority of this money from. There's a significant amount of decreases. Can you just elaborate as to what we're?
Yeah, so Health Choices is actually our CMS money, Medicare and Medicaid for people who have diagnoses. That money actually goes largely through us. The people qualify through human service funds, and then they go to, the money goes to the agencies that provide those services. So this is all pass-through money. So when that money moves around, we probably just didn't draw down as much as we thought we would, and our reserves are higher. So the state has slowed down our allocation until we spend down reserves. It's a very cyclical type of fund.
So you anticipate that money could be fluctuating back upwards next year?
Possibly. I haven't seen, so we haven't completed the human services budget for 2025 going forward. I haven't seen it. So I don't want to speculate because I haven't looked at their fund balances or talked to the accountant over there to see where they're at and what the service requests are. People that we have that live in our county, that come into the county, that qualify for those services, they may move out of the county. So then our allocation goes down. So it's a very cyclical process.
It probably doesn't fluctuate erratically, right?
No, it doesn't. And actually, those changes, when you look at the totality of the Health Choices budget, because it's one of the larger human services budget, it's not even considered material. And I know that sounds crass because they're large numbers, but the volume in that, if you look at what the total amount of money is there, it's not really a lot of money that's moving around on a percentage basis.
I understand what you're saying. Yeah, these percentages, like I'm just looking at one of the line items, 41468, out of the 32 million, we're taking a third out of it.
Yes.
They seem like substantial numbers. Was this anticipated, or did it catch us off guard?
It doesn't catch us off guard because we may have been moving some of that money. We may have more money in our reserves. So money that we thought we weren't going to spend, now the state allocation comes down and says, well, you have this amount of money in your reserves. This is a level of services you're going to provide, and therefore we are not going to give you this amount of money for the budget year. And remember, that's the changes for the first quarter. So this is sort of how the end of the state fiscal year is going. So when we look at what our allocation is going to be for fiscal year 2025, which is what we're going into with the state, we have to look and see the timing of when that money comes in because we're on the calendar year and the state is on the fiscal year. So that's
Next week, correct? July 1st is there?
Their budget goes into effect July 1st, God willing. And then at that point, we make our decisions based on what the allocation is going to look like, how much staff we have, how much reimbursable staff, and on and on and on. Health Choices, though, is basically consumer driven.
Understood. Thank you.
Yeah, if I may, it's okay, Steve. Health Choices, when it was formed, was really breaking that whole Medicare and Medicaid piece primarily out of mental health, and the state said you have some options here. You can vendor it out, you can put together a conglomerate of counties, but all the money is fed, through the state. And as far as what we get or don't get, you were allowed then to negotiate a deal, which we have done with, I believe it's Magellan all these years.
Magellan, it is, yeah.
And what we try to do is, or at least we tried to do, is say, hey, we'll pay this and this and this, like any other vendor. They'll come in high, we come in low, we figure it out. Because what we don't spend, we could put in a reserve fund. Now, that had strict limits on it, on what it could be used and not be used, specifically in the Health Choices services. But the state would look now and then and say, well, there's a limit on what you can put to the side and not use, and we'll, as the state would do, swoop in and we're going to either more or less take it, but we'll cut back on your Medicaid allotment.
And this is where.
And he's right. For us as a county, our money, we really don't, it's not factoring for our money.
And I guess that's where I'm, I guess not confused, but my own ignorance, just not understanding how the nitty gritty of this works. But if this is just pass-through money, but we're decreasing it, but it's already in our budget for this year, so we're using the decrease to then fund other areas. What are we gonna
So-
do next year when we're adjusted to those budgets, but this money's not there?
Well, so for example, if we've been increasing, so say we took more money in our reserves because for the LTSR, I know I'm missing some initials there, but for that program we're running through Human Services, that program and the startup costs for that program were paid from Health Choices and from those reserves. So that could also have an impact, meaning our reserves might either be higher or lower. We don't have as many programmatic costs because people are moving out. And then when the state allocates our first half of the year budget, and we look, remember we had the amendment early on in this past year. That was largely because we got grant money in and we had to make some adjustments in Human Services due to the way the block grant funding came in. And I know that's, I mean, we try to make sure we give council the best picture we have as to what's coming in. We also like to make sure with Human Services folks that when they're programming this money out, they're not promising services, paying for services that we're not going to have the money for.
Yeah, it's not an easy thing to forecast.
It's, unfortunately, it's not.
Is it fair to say that it's consumer-based?
It is consumer-based, very largely, and sometimes consumers who are getting services then drop off. They're not eligible for those services anymore, or
But if new people move
new
in.
people move in, we end up getting more money.
I just said to Ron, we should have Christie come back and discuss that at a Human Services meeting, because it is complex, and that was the community block grant that I couldn't remember. They just had the hearings in May. So this is a very big piece of the entire state, but like Magellan is still our provider, right? For
Correct.
the next couple of years.
Yeah.
They just did an RFP. I think they're around for 2 or 3 years now, so.
Yeah.
This is a big nut. Can I ask you 2 more questions?
Sure.
Again, just, it's always good information. The lead paint and the federal, is that because there's more money coming in and is
Yes.
given to us? So how, again, how does that happen?
So we draw down the lead paint money, so that is our allocation. We budget in for the allocation. We may not pull all that money down. It depends on what projects we have, what programs, what people apply. That's also there's certain qualifications to be able to pull that money down.
And the same thing with the Act 12 interconnect. Where does that come from, the 800,000?
The 800,000, I believe that is is that in 911?
Yes,
It is.
sir.
So that money is, so when the 911 budget comes out and we get those interconnect fees, we make our best guess when we do the budget. We never know what those are going to be. So within the first quarter at year end, the state balances all that out. And then by the second quarter, we know what the money is going to be. So those interconnect fees come in, and it's the old like 25 cents on your phone bill for, they don't do it that way anymore, but.
That's not the money that we didn't get last year.
Correct. No, this is the sure up money once they do the final calculation from all the telephone providers, I believe.
Any other questions? Thank you for that, though. It's good to hear.
Yep.
Any other questions? Call for the vote.
Mr. Corpora,
Yes.
Mr. Kraft,
Yes.
Mr. Gafredo,
Yes.
Mr. Heckman,
Yes.
Mrs. Keegan,
Yes.
Ms. Fargo Hefner,
Yes.
Mr. Warren,
Yes.
Mr. Brown,
Yes.
Mr. Giovanni,
Yes.
passes, adopted by a vote to 9-0.
Thank you. Next, we have public hearing of an ordinance entitled, "An Ordinance of the Council of the County of Northampton, Northampton County, Pennsylvania, authorizing the incurring of non-electoral debt by the issuance of general obligation bonds in an aggregate principal amount not to exceed $63,500,000, covenanting to pay and pledging all available taxing power of the local government unit for the payment of the bonds, providing for the establishment of a sinking fund of the bonds, providing for the establishment of a sinking fund and appointing a sinking fund depository, fixing the form maximum interest rates, maturity dates, and other provisions for the payment thereof, authorizing the acceptance of a proposal for the purchase of the bonds, authorizing a filing of required documents with the Department of Community and Economic Development, ratifying and directing certain actions of officers, and making certain other covenants and provisions in respect of the bonds. Mr. Warren and Ms. Keegan introduced this ordinance at the June 6th, 2024 meeting. Are there any questions or comments from the public? Any discussion on council? Mr. Warren.
Thank you, Madam President. Just wanted to make some comments with regard to this. Members of this body, I mean, even including myself, are always talking about how the county is in the service business. And if we're truly in the service business, we need to be able to provide the space and tools for our employees to do their jobs to the best of their ability for our taxpayers. And we have folks, as county executive mentioned earlier, when I was on the Children, Youth, and Families Advisory Board, I remember the director would tell us every now and again how they were busting at the seams and working out of closets. And quite frankly, I don't know anybody that wants to work in a closet for a long period of time. This project, I believe, inevitably is responsible governance, especially from an elections standpoint. And while we do talk about the integrity of elections, let's make sure we're giving our elections office headquarters what they need to be even more efficient in the decades to come. Things may get more complex, and we need to give them the tools as well, and give them the space. We can't continue to have an elections office and their activity being handled in 3 or 4 different locations within our county government center. So with that being said, let's not forget that we have an A1 credit rating. Now is the time to do this because it is the fiscally responsible thing to do. The garage is a public safety hazard. The last thing that I think we all need is a huge chunk of rock coming down, hitting somebody, a lawsuit that would adversely affect this county financially because of that. And I think at the end of the day, if we truly want to be good stewards for our county employees in terms of their space and how that space is being utilized, I think that correlates with how we and they are serving the public. I'm going to be voting in favor of this. I appreciate the time.
Thank you. Mr. Gafredo?
I don't know how we could say this is fiscally responsible with the information that we have. I guess I have a lot of questions, but I don't think anybody's going to be able to give me the answers as to, how do we come up with the $63.5 million budget, and what is that based on? I don't see any architectural or structural drawings. I know this. Do we have architecturals or structural drawings, or do we just have conceptuals?
At this point in time, we have the conceptual plan that USA Architects completed last year, and that is the basis that Skanska used to develop the cost estimate that was distributed at the Finance Committee meeting on Tuesday. So that is a very high-level cost estimate. All they did is...
Right, that's a lot of building for $60 million can get you quite a bit. Is there any mid-tier? Because I know we just spent $3 million on repairing that parking garage last year, correct? 3 million or 5 million?
No, it was...
I believe it was 300,000.
How much?
It was 233,000 last year.
And do we have a structural engineer report on the parking garage still? You gave us one before the repairs. Did we get one after the repairs?
Not after the repairs, no.
Okay. I don't know if I have any more questions for Mr. Milley, but I think that I hear everybody's concerns with needing space. I just think that basically cutting a check for $63 million essentially is a little premature without any other information as far as, do we know, can we get a set of drawings? Can we go through that process first where we actually see what we're getting? And if we talk about how much space we have over at Graysdale, how much space we have elsewhere in the county that we could utilize, that we could make do, because this is a Cadillac. And I think we need to be looking at the financial interests of the taxpayer as well, not just the people that work in this building. I think $63 million is a huge number. And to say that we are financially sound is also takes out of the equation the fact that we borrow from a government that is not financially sound, that's trillions of dollars in debt. And we are making a lot of assumptions, the fact that we are financially sound, as long as they keep giving us money. So I would like to find a more fiscally responsible, conservative solution to our space needs. I think our parking deck is absolutely fine. I literally walked all around it before I came here, looked all over, and I do have expertise in that, and I do not think it's structurally deficient. I think it's aesthetically ugly. Now, nobody's gonna tell me that it's a good-looking park. It's not. And I can understand why somebody wanna make it look really, really pretty, but it is not falling down. That is a structurally sound parking deck, and it'll be structurally sound for at least 10, 20 more years if you keep maintaining the way it has been maintained. And I would argue with anybody, and I will provide a structural engineer to come give a second opinion if they're saying that that is dilapidated or if that's falling down, because it's just not the case, especially after the repairs. So do I think we have space needs? Sure. Do I think it's more affordable ways of finding space? Absolutely. $63 million is huge for a construction project for extra space in a parking garage, in my opinion. And I will not be supporting it in this capacity. I do think we can continue to have conversations about what we can do about it, but to basically say, here's $63.5 million, bring us a project, I think it's doing it backwards. I think we work into what we think we need for a project, and we could then get a better grasp of what that could cost, and then we could say, yes, we approve it. But I think this is putting the cart before the horse.
Ms. Keegan.
Okay, so, on one hand, we hear the elections, and we have this Elections Integrity Committee. And we hear, we've all heard the people in the elections office say we need space, things are disjointed. They're disjointed for the DA, they're disjointed for human services, they're busting at the seams. We need this Election Integrity Committee because we're all worried about elections on this hand. But then when you hear we're disjointed and it could be safer on this hand, you don't want to give them the money. And so either you want to set them up for failure or you just want to obstruct this. I mean, Mr. McClure said that $2.7 million would have to go into renting a facility. 20 years? Now you have $60 million. I mean, let's do things the right way. Let's stop being penny wise and dollar foolish. Let's be fiscally responsible. We have the money. Let's do what's right. I mean, I don't understand. You walk around the parking garage and you've made these assumptions about its sound for 10 to 20 years.
That's what I do for a living.
Yeah, okay, but
And Ms.
walking
Keegan,
around.
the elections aren't insecure because, in my opinion, because we're working about multiple offices, it's because we don't require identification to get ballots, and we have mass mail-in ballots. I think that's where our insecurities lie. And we have voting machines that constantly have errors. So let's not paint with broad brushes. I don't think we're having insecure elections because we have crammed offices. I think we have it because we have a massive change to how we do elections in this country. We've had nothing but problems since.
You have
That's the
3
clarification.
departments that are telling you they are disjointed and are not working optimally. And here we have this opportunity where you have all the things are aligning for us, and you just say, no. I walked around the parking garage. I don't think it needs it. It could stand 10 to 20 years. I don't know where you got that from, but I mean, you
From my
either want to
expertise.
obstruct it
Wait.
or,
Address the chair, please.
From my expertise, that's where I got it from.
yeah. Did you do anything? Did you look at it, or did you just walk around it and take a look at it?
Would you like to respond? Just address me, like, I don't think we have to have, like,
Visual inspection, yes.
Okay.
And that's a pretty common way of assessing structurals.
So I just had
I'm
my
not gonna take a core
roof
sample
done.
of the concrete.
I just had my roof done, and they didn't know whether the plywood was damaged unless they took the shingles off, so.
Because the
taking a
plywood is
look at
underneath
it-
the shingles.
Right,
Order.
There's
exactly.
no concrete
exactly.
underneath the concrete.
Point
That's
of
my point.
Order, point of order. Thank you. Mr. Kraft.
All right. This is like deja vu for me all over again. I've been in that parking lot since God knows when. How long ago were we in the Miletus building with the election commission when I was chair of that? It is falling down. It's been repaired by every executive. I think John even had part in that, trying to fix it. It's a mess, and the visual inspection is not going to do what's going on. Mr. Miller, do you have that Skanska analysis of the deck by any chance, of what they had said about our deteriorating parking deck?
Skanska wasn't involved with the
weren't?
assessment of the parking deck. They prepared the cost estimate.
For the new
Yes,
for the new deck?
yes.
Okay, so what was the cost for the new deck to build a deck there? Because, I mean, we have to remove the old one.
So the cost for the new deck, and this is strictly just the direct construction costs, the labor, materials, and equipment. They had just under 11 million for the new parking deck and a little over $500,000 for the demolition of the existing.
Okay,
that-
and that's just a deck. Now, I know we have conceptual drawings with the building and everything involved, which, Mr. Graffredo would know when you have, you can't build a deck and then build a building on it because they don't match up. It's not something that we do. I mean, we did that over here at the prison and built so many floors and stopped, and we still can go up higher if we need it. I've been around a long time, and we had councils that would do things, and we have councils that put it in park and don't do anything and talk all the time. Mr. Heckman remembers when we used to have the Miletus building, the Wolf building. We had everybody all over the place. We built a human services building. I heard the same exact arguments. Oh my God, we're spending this much money on a human services building. How dare we? How can we do that? We're gonna waste all this money. Oh my God, blah, blah, blah. So we did it. All my life, I wanted to build a new morgue. We don't call it the morgue anymore. We call it, what do we call it?
Forensic
The
Center.
forensic center. I still call it a morgue. We finally got that done. We did the same thing. We floated a bond. We did everything. These bonds are for building a building, all the furnishings, everything that goes into the building. And they don't spend the entire bond. You capture the amount of money you think at the total highest you can get, and you don't use it all. It's just that you have that availability. I've also been in construction for years. I don't know if you're a structural engineer. I don't know if you actually went to college for that kind of stuff. That garage has wrecked a lot of my cars being here. I've had my windows etched from it leaking through on my Lincoln. It just etched the window, the front window of it. I've had things fall on my car. I parked my car under it right now, so I hope I get a new paint job from the county for my new little Audi, Yeah, I know. I keep teasing somebody about it. It has been a mess as long as Mr. Heckman might be able to speak to how long that garage has been a mess. We've been through many executives, many fixes. We are out of space. I was here when we built the Human Services building. It was supposed to be for Human Services only and the Veterans Administration. Veterans Administration has a little office. Human Services everywhere. It's great. It's set up to have the kids and conferences, and you can separate the parents and do everything you need to do. Now we have other people from the county in there. It's crowded. We were putting other people that don't belong in Human Services in the Human Services building. We're out of space. We need to sit here, as people like to say, pull ourselves up by our own bootstraps, use the tools that we have, and build this stinking building and get rid of that garage. Is it going to be an inconvenience for a little bit? Yeah. Will all these people here be here at that time? Who knows? It may be finished and the McClure administration might get voted out and somebody else will be in there. But what's going to be in there is needed. And we need to be a council that does something for once and not just talk about it and say no to everything. I really, the bonds have been worked out. We've done this, how many times, Mr. Heckman? How many buildings did we build, We've done, and for years and years and years before this, which is my point, nobody did anything. Every council kicked something down the road. We were working out of a damn farmhouse, and he was dialing for refrigerators for bodies because we had nowhere to put our bodies when people died. And we did that for 30 years. And it just kept going and going. And no one would get the money together to build a morgue. But we did on this council. I think Mr. Heckman voted for it. Lori voted for it. We all sat here and we did it. Mr. Kuzic was on that, I believe. We saw things that needed to be done. This is projecting down the road. I mean, we need the space. If you don't think we need the space, you're not opening your eyes and seeing what's going on. I mean, regardless whether you think the garage is great and it's going to last 20 years, it won't. But since you think it does, I mean, I was here when they put all the new brackets on all over the place and did that. What else did we do? We just waterproofed it or something crazy so that leaching doesn't come down through in your car and ruin your glass. Well, I don't know if it worked, but it's there. $200-some thousand we spent. We keep Band-Aiding this stuff. We keep trying to find other spaces. Ron remembers the Melitus building and the Wolf building. You had old people walking upstairs. Our biggest argument was they can't get there. We have a controller in a building over here that should be just torn down. That little thing across the street in a triangle. You can't get an elevator in there. If there is an elevator, I don't think it works, so you can do it. You can't get emergency, you can't get a ramp to go up there. It's junk. And we've had our controller in there, how long, Ron?
I have no idea.
Ever since we can remember, right? The Melitus building was another one. Oh, no, we're gonna keep the Melitus building. Finally, it got condemned by the city of Easton. This is how we work here. It got condemned. The building next to the prison, it got condemned, you know? Our own prison, D-tier. If it wasn't for this administration and its people on council, it would have never been renovated. It was falling down. And that's the old part of the prison. So, I mean, we do this a lot. I just, I don't know why we put ourselves in park to not get this done. I mean, we're gonna get the actual bids. This is the bonding to get the money. Then he'll go out, I'm sure you're gonna go out and get real hard bids from real contractors to build this, and your garages are very specific. You know how much fun they are to build, tear down and build. Once you implement the cranes and you implement everything we're gonna need here, you're gonna probably need a tower crane over there to do this. You can't do all that and then, okay, we build a garage and then, let's do the building now. You know what it costs to take all that equipment and bring it out again. I mean, we didn't do it for the prison. We got the floors we can go up instead of building something. We've never, ever done it to do it again. And the elevators stop up there. Everything, all the services stop, and it can go up more floors. So I'm for this. I'm for this bond. I know it seems like an awful lot of money, and it is. It really is. But where we're at and what we have right now, and where we are at financially, and what this is going to cost us for this money, it's probably a heck of a lot cheaper than finding places for people if only one of them was 2.7 million. I don't know what we're going to do with everybody else. I mean, we have people, Ronald, remember, you were ahead of human services. You did it in the Wolf building, right?
Yeah.
And how did that work out? I mean, how many years did we try to get out of the Wolf building and get a real building for human
Well,
services?
either one of them to fix it
Could we
or
address?
to fix it, work it out, whatever.
Right.
One or the other.
We never, until we got a council that said, yeah, let's do it. And that was actually 5 or 6 Republicans to 3 Democrats at the time, I think, when we did it. And we built that human services building. Somebody wanted green stuff and, all kind of crazy stuff, and we said no to him, but we built the building. So I'd like to see us do this. I'm for it. I don't see where the objection could be, and we can sharpen our pencil when the bids come in. We get to review reams and reams of paper, and hopefully Mr. McClure will set up a committee of some sort for council people on the bidding process to look at what's coming in, like we did with the other buildings. Just an overview.
That was 10 minutes. And I
That's-
think you took a breath at 8, so that diving
Okay.
is really, I need to
Listen,
sign
I can
on.
hold my breath a long
And if
time.
that's a violation of whatever act we have, I don't care, because that was pretty impressive. Does anybody on this side want to speak? Mr. Brown, I'm going to get everybody else first. Go down the line and round
Yeah,
again.
in taking a look at this, I'll continue the thoughts that I think John expressed. I think 63 million is a lot of money. I don't think I have enough information to really vet this project in all its moving parts in a way. The parking garage has been an issue for, a long time. There's no, we can go back on, forth on that, but I think we could agree that, potentially the parking deck needs to be rehabbed in a significant way, if not replaced completely. The challenge I have is I understand the need for space has been projected, but if you look at current trends, basically what I hear from developers and people organizing workspace, it used to be an office would be 250 square feet. Now, on average, the new workforce is looking for 85 square feet. So realigning the workspace in a more modern fashion would be something I'd want to see if we had taken a look at. Mr. McClure stated that, the space we would need from a commercial perspective, if we went out, least it would be 2.7 million. As far as my understanding is office space is cratering. There should be space available. I don't know how far and how deep they looked for that, but the commercial real estate market for office space has been bottoming because of COVID, because of the workforce changes that have been out there. We talk about the Human Services Group, and I understand there are additional people that they've needed to add to. But I've also heard from them that they, many of them could work remotely. They don't need an office. They're out in the field anyway. And how much of that could be taken into account to alleviate some of the pressures on the Human Services building? I don't think, borrowing $63 million, even if you wanted to do a parking deck, we have the cash on hand to be able to do that. I think this administration is hoarding cash. We could possibly pay cash for the parking deck, but to borrow $63 million to do a deck, a building, and whatever else is rolled up in there, I think is not responsible to the taxpayer, and that's in the long term who will also have to serve, is the taxpayer. I do think, John mentioned Greystale. We've got 435 beds occupied. That building's been half empty for a long, long time. We're willing to put in and renovate for a free daycare for the employees at the taxpayer's expense. Have we considered retrofitting parts of that building? Obviously, we're not adding beds. It's down 230 beds or 225 beds or something like that. So a portion of that building could be utilized and renovated in some way. And if I spend enough time digging deeper, there's probably other things I'd like to see evaluated first in a more meaningful way before I would be able to support a bond for $63 million. Mr. Kraft, I don't disagree that at times we kick things down the road. I've seen that with the bridges and some of the other infrastructure that needed to be done in this county. And at some point, you do have to pull up your bootstraps. But the district attorney's comments, the election office, they're offices that they're split, and they have to. That's just the nature of working for government. Government, you don't always get a nice, clean, convenient space always to work in. But hey, it's worked for 40, 50 years. I think for $63 million, we could let it work a little bit longer till we get more information on that. So I won't. In this current form, I would not be supporting this bond issue.
Could we kind of let everybody else get a first pass, and then we could respond?
Renting space and how, because we had a committee by May, we had a committee when we did the Human Services building, and they had done the whole county and the population of the county. And that's how the building became where it was for access to the people who are using the building. And it was a massive diagram. I forget who the person was, Mr. Sedone, you might remember, Mr. Heckman when he wasn't here. But that's how we figured that out, where the building was going to be. So when you're looking for space, we also look to rent space before we go to Human Service, because why the heck would we build a building if we could rent it? Like you said, we couldn't find a building that was suitable anywhere, that we wouldn't have had a retrofit and turn into, spend millions and millions of dollars gutting it and turn it into all the office space. And it wasn't, none of the buildings that were built were conducive to this kind of government work that we needed. So that's, when you say you don't know how hard you look for this building, it also is indicative of where the people are coming from and what use the building is having. Like the election commission has to be here in this building. I wanted to move it down I wanted to move it down into Hugmore Park in that building. It can't be there. That would have given it its own space. So as far as that goes in the rent, that's one of the major problems we had, finding a suitable office building near the government seat to make it all work. And that was a big, long study and everything.
Thank you for the history lesson. But that was 12 or 15 years ago now. And as I recall with the Human Services building, for example, this administration inherited $14 million cash to purchase that building and decided to mortgage it and hold on to the cash and then borrow the money for the forensic center and some other things like that. So I believe that I would like more information on this bond issue before I would agree to allow the administration to borrow more money. I understand 15 years later, I'd like to understand more about the commercial ability, the same type of studies that you're referring to.
But as
Ken,
you know,
I don't
depending on
disagree.
who's in that building, that's how the structure is paid for. But the government gives us the money to pay for the building. I mean, depending building's paid for by pass-through. So that's also something you want to think about. If you rent, you don't get that. So that's just, I'm sorry.
Mr. Giovanni, wrong G, sorry.
Yeah, thank you, President. Well, you know, I'm here listening to everybody, and of course, we're talking, you know, in the past about what we did and all that kind of stuff. But, you know, Mr. McClure, the executive, says, well, we're going to the digital field. We're going to start cutting back on paper. We're going to be digital. All right, I understand. That's good. That's a good sign. But we're also in an era where the remote worker works. They're the infrastructure for broadband access to everybody. We're into the remote worker. So I understand you're running out of room for human services. Again, just like Mr. Brown says, a lot of them go out in the field, but they can also be remote workers. That's the new trend coming now. So now we're looking at making a building, just like Guardian did. They made this new building, and half the people work remotely. And there they have, the building's half empty. But there are some people there, but a lot of them work remotely. At our insurance company that I'm chairman of the board, we have a hybrid. 2 days in the office, 3 work remotely. That's how it's been working. That's how we've been doing it since COVID. So, I mean, I don't have enough information also, and I won't be voting for this.
Mr. Heckman?
No, Mr. Warren has his hand up.
I know, but I said everybody gets a pass first. Okay.
Thank you, Madam President. I understand that there are employment trends where folks work remotely. I work remotely. I work for a nonprofit that helps foster youth. But the one thing that I do know, is from a human services standpoint, from a caseworker standpoint, and I am somewhat of, I don't want to necessarily say I'm an expert in this, but I've been working in this realm for quite some time. It is important that caseworkers are together
For meetings.
as they are going through cases within children, youth, and families. It is important that they are together, and that communication, it being in front of each other, is an important aspect of the job. It's an important aspect of reuniting families and the daily rigors of what the job is. Sure, there can be some remote work here and there, but to say that we're going to potentially hypothetically speaking, have a certain percentage of folks in human services go to Graysdale and perhaps keep a certain percentage within the human services building, I do not think that is effective at all for the department and for the families that we end up serving. And they're busting at the seams.
Mr. Heckman?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. I
Yeah,
didn't mean to
no, I
cut you
just-
off. I heard a pause. I apologize.
It could be, I'm sorry, I'm just trying to collect my thoughts, Madam President. It could be
That's right.
detrimental to cases, I believe. I believe it could be detrimental to children and families at the end of the day. That's it. Thank you, Madam President.
Right, and then, go ahead, Ms. Keegan and Mr.
No,
Heckman.
Ms. Keegan, please, ladies first.
So I just don't understand. We have people that we pay that are directors here. We pay them, and they're the expert in their field. And they're coming to us, and they are asking, they are telling us we're busting at the seams. We have 3 departments. We need extra space. We need extra space. We have the money. We can do this. And then we have 9 of us, some of whom think that they know better than the directors. They know better than the people who looked at the structure and did tests on it. They've talked to people, and people said that they could utilize space more. Are all our employees going to hear this meeting and say, oh my gosh, we're going to start working remotely? The county council said we could start working remotely. This is what the new trend is. I mean, I just don't, I've never seen anything like this. You have directors, we pay them a lot of money for their expertise. They're coming to us, they're telling us what they need. And then we have people here who don't even work in those departments, who have these opinions, and it's dumbfounding to me. I mean, I've never seen anything like this. This is exactly what I was talking about prior to this meeting.
Do you want to let Ron go first? And I'll let you go?
All right. Mr. Pratt taxed my memory more than a few times. I was fixing a leaky fountain outdoor today, and I think I got a little heat stroke, so I may not remember everything. All right, look, there's a lot said. And I've spoken to the executive about this. First, let me start by saying we're not an administrator, and not seeing something like this before, we have our branches of government, just like the state and the federal. Our job, our biggest job is money. That's what we do. We decide the money. If we don't like a budget, we turn it down. If we think something's too expensive, we don't vote for it. If we want more information as a body, we ask for it. Now, the administration is run by one person. Directors come up, but it's run by one person. And you know, they can make a pitch, and every executive administration makes pitches for projects. That's not new. I don't disagree with some of the statements Mr. McClure has made, but I don't necessarily feel that, I mean, we are here primarily for fiscal oversight. So we have to remember in doing that, that the directors, and all due respect to Mr. Mealy, I've talked to him many times, he's a great guy and he knows what he's talking about. Every director is a political appointment. So let's not pretend we're getting, you know, and I don't want to offend my Republican friends, but we're not getting Dr. Fauci on a lot of this stuff. So we're getting whoever the executive wants to put in there. Politics, what is, I don't have a script. I'm sorry, I should have written down stuff and I didn't, but part of the, I guess, this heat stroke. I had notes. Why do you get so offended?
Come on, you had 10 minutes, don't interrupt him.
Guys got offended. I mean, you got notes. I'm sorry. I don't think a script is a bad thing. I wish I would use one sometimes, but I mean. Well,
Could he have the floor, please? Thank you.
Well, I think this leads into something I said too. Being a collaborative body of 9 individuals, it takes 5 people to vote for something to get it through, and 6 people if you expect the executive to override. And I don't think trying to knock down or shame people who don't agree with you is really great legislatively. It may be great in administrations, in a cabinet meeting. You can have I've seen where a director of administration will say to somebody, one of the other directors, you're an idiot, don't go out and say that. And that's fine. But here, our job is to deliberate. Our job isn't to just say, this is what they want, yes, it's great. And I don't think we've kicked everything down the road. I agree with Mr. Kraft. I think that for years, I didn't want a morgue because they were all overpriced. But as Mr. McClure knows, when morgue came, the forensic center came up, I listened to everything and I thought, you know, the time has come. We're a big enough county now, the time has come to do a forensic center. And I was fully on board with it. And I talked to Mr. Dertinger numerous times, probably more than he wanted me to. So, I mean, and I felt good about that. As far as the Human Services building, excuse me, I agree. I want them to have that space. As you know, you might have seen, I came in as a private citizen, I was against it because the executive let Wolf go to hell. The tiles were falling down. They came and said, our tiles are falling on our heads. And I said, well, why didn't somebody fix it? So I get it. It was primed to do. But I mean, we sort of did rent it. We signed a triple net lease, which made the man who owned it very happy. And I give all the credit in the world to the McClure administration for finally buying that guy out. It was a terrible lease, just my opinion. It was a terrible triple net lease. We were responsible for everything, and he just collected the checks. This is a big amount of money, and let's not pretend it's not. I mean, it's $63,500,000 is a huge amount of money. And if we're just gonna, they ask for it, give it to them. I mean, employees have come in and asked for more money. We haven't discussed that yet. So if we're gonna play the employee card, we should play all their cards, play the whole hand. So I mean, at the end of the day, Mr. Barron explained when I said, what are the different categories for it? And he said, well, it's a big bucket. Dump the money in the big bucket. We'll go from there. I think it's fair to say we'd like a little bit more than a big bucket. That's a lot of money to put in a big bucket. For example, what's furnishings? Where are we at with furnishings? Now, when they did the 47, I don't know if you were on council, they did the bond for Reedman, did for the courthouse. You know that went to court. I mean, it had to be voted on twice. People wanted to know what kind of doorknobs were being put in and how much they cost. What do the judges want in each room? I don't need to know. I even told him, I don't need to know what the doorknobs are. You buy whatever the hell he wants. But I do think, though, we could get a little bit more specificity for these folks who have concerns. And I'm not going to beat them over the head because they're asking for it. I think Mr. McClure needs 5 votes to get this passed. And I don't think it's constructive, and this is just me talking from my experience, to denigrate the concerns of anybody. You've made legitimate points, and I mainly agree with them, and many of them. But at the same time, I don't think it's unreasonable to ask for a bit more information. Like, how much are the lawyers going to get till this is all said and done? How much are the consultants get? I mean, we've been talking about that with Dixie. So just because we need the space and we want to have something built doesn't mean that you have to just say, yes, it's on my desk now, yes. I think if people want a little bit more information, I don't want to see this thing die. And I worry when we get into these kind of modes that it's an all or nothing kind of criteria. All or nothing, that's a gamble. What if it's 5 votes no? I mean, you can tell on social media and say these people are terrible, they're evil, they're this, they're that, whatever. Who cares? Social media is for hate anyway. I think the ultimate goal is to get 5 votes for it. And if to get 5 votes for it, we need to work with each other a little bit more, as opposed to yelling at each other. I don't see a problem with that. But then again, I don't really have I'm not into the big political divide of today. I'm old school. I always get along, I believe in Tip O'Neill. You had to sort of sit down with Reagan. You had to sit with everybody and work it out. I'm not into, if you don't do this, you're evil. If you don't do that, if you do that, you're good. I support this, but I think it's not unfair to ask for more specifics. And yes, of course, there's all the reasons to have it. The people, staff, the room. I think the deck needs to be redone, and I agree. When I saw the first time I saw the project, it made sense to me. I'll say that much. Having said that, I agree, $63,500,000 is not something to sneeze at. I mean, it's okay for you in your position up here as the fiscal watchdogs of the county, and you're being paid to do that. They may be paid for what they do. We're being paid for that. And I believe in that. I believe in what I do up here, and I believe that people expect that of me, and it's made me a lot of enemies over the years. So be it. But I think that we have to figure out how to work together if we want to get this project done. So am I supportive? Yeah, overall. Do I think that it's evil that some people want to get more information? No, I don't think it's evil. Let's not throw the baby out with the bathwater here to prove a point. That's all I'm saying. That's it. I'm done.
Thank you. Mr. Freire, you want to go again?
Yeah, I very much agree with what Mr. Heckman said. And Mr. Kraft, I agree with a lot of what you said. And I don't think I ever said we don't need space, we don't need to have a plan. I think we just need more information. Because if we go giving them a check for $63 million, the incentive to design a $63 million project is there. Because designers work on a commission based on the total cost of the project. The fact that the more you get, you already got it allotted for, why would you want to give it for less? So I think we can say, let's look at what we have countywide. Can we consolidate anywhere? Can things be, can we solve a problem by using something over here? What are our biggest needs? What do we need to have here? And then we can see, do we need 60? Could it be 40? Could it be 20? Because I don't think many people here understand what $60 million gets you in a construction project, and I do. And we've built entire retirement communities with apartment buildings and a healthcare center and 200 cottages for $60 million. It's a large sum in money for construction. So yes, I see a need. Do I think it needs to be done right now? Absolutely not. I think there's a lot more information that we need and a lot more due diligence that we can do on council to make sure that we're spending the county's money wisely. And the last thing I want to say, because this is kind of outside the box thinking, but there is another trend, not just remote working, but artificial intelligence is going to allow a lot of administrative work to go away. And I don't want to see us build a county building to house X amount of employees if we see a trend that's showing how many employees are going to be working in the building 10, 15, 20 years from now when we're still, paying on a mortgage for this, seeing that number decrease. And that is a very real thing that is coming to the marketplace, and that's kind of another thing that we need to make ourselves aware of. Like I said, I don't disagree with any of the opinions that we need space. I agree we need space. I just think we need to look at other options, weigh those options, and then possibly see what other design elements we could say, well, maybe we could do it for $20 million instead of $60 million. I think that's part of our job. So.
Ms. Hefner, may I?
Yes.
I want to ask Ms. Goffredo a question, a serious question. I heard what you said. I think with human services, the problem's going to be sort of like what I moaned about at the beginning of the meeting, paperless. Paperless is a great phrase, but I mean, there's going to be paper. People, until dinosaurs like me die, people want paper in their hands. I mean, and if we're going to go paperless, our computer system better be top-notch. Our technology better be at the best. I went online to try and get a senior dog license, and I got hieroglyphics. So, it's just, we've got to be on top of things when it comes to that. I think you're always going to have people, though. Human services, this county, we wouldn't need a county if it weren't for services. We're the social safety net government. That's what we do. If we didn't do that, you could have a prison, you could have the courts. We don't even need a DCED. I mean, that was done through the director. You had a CDBG person, and now I know there's lots of money flooding in, but you could get a person to take care of that. You don't need to hire 6 or 7 people and create a department. I mean, we've sort of go off in tangents, but at the end of the day, we provide service. I think we all have to keep that in mind. And that is our fundamental responsibility as a county government. That's it. The regulations at the state are very clear on what we're responsible for. And so I don't see how we'll get rid. I know there have been other executives that said they want to get rid of people. And I think you can get rid of some people, but that one-on-one connection is in human services is so critical. And if we want more people to move in, which it seems like we do, and we want them to come on in. We want every square inch, we're going to build apartments. I don't care how much money you make. I don't care what social strata you are. Child abuse happens all the time with rich people as well as poor people. Mental health is a crisis. If we want to talk about what we should be doing, I'd like to see a massive uptick in our mental health outreach and funding. The state, pretty much limits it, but we have a mental health crisis in the country, in the state, and in the county. Every county, we're not just alone. I'm not going to try and paint a nice picture on that. We do what we can, but we're not doing enough. Not because they don't want to, but because they can't afford it. So that's why I get upset when we hear about staff shortages, because we don't have the luxury of saying, hey, they have to come or will somebody. No, we need to keep staff in. We need to train them. We need to keep them. And that takes money. That takes a lot of money. So we need space too. And I think ultimately we're going to need this space, but I respect the fact of what you said regarding do we have other options. Would you at least consider, if you got more information on where this money is going and how it's going for different line items, would you consider this at all?
Absolutely. I'm never going to tell you I'm a hard no on anything. I'm not in principle against this. I just think to say with what we've been presented that this is a $63 million project without any other argument. And I do understand we could spend less. But but I'm gonna say, in my experience, that if we send a project out and we say the budget's $63 million, you're gonna see it get awfully close to that budget.
All right.
Can I speak?
I wanted to ask Mr. Mealy a question.
Well, so do I, so I'm going to jump in here if
You
you
go
let me, because,
You go first.
thanks.
Don't let him go
You're
last.
always welcome to sit down, because you're, maybe you're happy to stretch, but
I'm just
I'll
ready to
get you a
respond.
nice, Emily, like, bar stool type thing. 'Cause you're very patient. I have some questions. How long has this project in this iteration been planned? How long have you been working on this design plan theory?
The concept plan, like the actual work started on it about a year ago, but the initial discussions in terms of what the best overall solution to solve both of these problems, that probably started about 2-3 years ago.
So, was there ever a thought to do any, well, maybe that's not the right way to phrase it, but is there a possibility or way to do some breakouts and some other, like Plan A, B, C? Because again, I agree with what Mr. Heckman said. This is the ultimate administration's proposal. But I hear some people on council saying, well, maybe the parking deck, maybe not as big, maybe not as much. So do you have other options available for us?
Yeah, so the cost estimate that Skanska had generated for the 43 million, that was, the basis that we used to come up to the 63.5 million bond request. Because at the end of the day, we don't know exactly what this structure is going to cost. All we have is a rough idea of the size of the garage. We know we want a 3-story building for the office space that's roughly 30,000 square feet. That's all we know at this point. It's very, very, order of magnitude. I would love to have
10,000 square foot of floor or 30,000 square foot of floor?
30,000 total.
Total.
It'd be 3 floors of roughly 10. And I would love to have, a full set of plans and bid documents that we could develop a cost estimate that is accurate to a percent or two of where it would actually come in. But that's a $1 million endeavor to have an architect or an engineer draft a full set of plans. So at this point, we feel like we were trying to be conservative with the number that would be required to construct the deck. And if there is money left over, there's never a dearth of capital project needs. There's equipment at the jail that still needs to be replaced that, we just had to make some cuts from the energy savings project that we completed a couple years ago. But there's 9 rooftop units on the jail that desperately need to be replaced. Paving, roofing, elevators. I mean, those are always going to be needs. I know that the emergency management's been talking about the P25 upgrades for many years. That's another potential source to our funding opportunity with any remaining funds. And as for your comment about if the budget is artificially inflated for the building, then we are going to over-design it. That's just not true. I mean, we have a basic understanding of what needs to be constructed here. We're not looking to do anything extravagant by any means. And the design fees, it would not be a percentage of the construction cost. That may be how they choose to bid it, but we would only be awarding it based on a lump sum fee.
Is there money available in the budget to do the $1 million set of plans?
Not currently.
Is there a reason that this is not considered for a referendum and that it's coming straight to us? Because somebody who was here a long time ago and far away suggested it possibly should go to referendum. Was that ever discussed? Or is that out of your wheelhouse?
That may be better asked
right.
or answered by the
I'll
county
withdraw
executive.
that question. So I guess what I hear you saying is that it is possible to get some variations on the plans, that it's possible that the fund amount could be different. At this point, this is what is being proposed, but it could be less. It doesn't have to be 63 million, that's what's being proposed. And again, I think I hear you saying that some of that money, if it was not used for that building, could be used for other capital improvement projects that are already on the table. You know, I wish it had been presented to us that way. So at this point, I'm not opposed, but I'm not in favor. And why is I'd like to see other options or more data. And so I don't know what the rest of council wants to do, if people want to move to vote on it tonight, if people want more information, it's the purview of council. But I agree also with Mr. Heckman. I don't want to be shamed into voting, because anybody who wants to try to say, well, why not now, will get me to vote no tonight. So I'd rather not vote, get the answers to the questions that I want, and then consider it more appropriately. But again, that's up to the rest of you.
Madam President, can I make a request?
You can.
You know,
I'm
I'm
sorry.
also in favor,
wanna
go ahead.
ask him a
It's for
question.
Mr. Amelia as well.
Oh,
but
okay, go ahead. Go ahead. I didn't want
At the
somebody
end.
to make some kind of motion before I asked him.
Essentially, what would, the information I'm looking for, and I understand what it takes to put a working set of drawings together and the amount of money it costs, but conceptual layout of the floor plans, how many square foot for what department, how many offices, what do we have, what are we working with currently? Do you know roughly office space, you know, not counting the courtrooms, not counting council chambers, but what you guys are currently working with as far as like human services in this building currently, how many square foot you guys have? What is 30,000 square foot? Is that half of what you have over here? Is it 100%?
I don't know that number off
See,
the
these
top
are
of
the
my
things that I want to know, because are we doubling the office space, or are we creating 50% more? How are we going to break out the spacing? Are we going to give election a whole floor? Are we going to give them a quarter floor? These are the things that you could get somebody that's not even an architect, just somebody that can do basic CAD work to say, this is our projected, or is what we're proposing the layout to be, and then could we scale it down? How much money would we save? Do we scale it up? Could we make, you know, these are the things that give us a little bit more insight and involvement in it, so we feel like we have a little bit more control.
If I could respond to that, part of the exercise that was done last year, it was largely a programming exercise to determine how much space we needed. Aside from the first floor with the election space, which we'd be creating a large conference room, which we just currently lack, the rest of the building is essentially a like-for-like replacement with the office spaces that we currently have in this building. So we did walkthroughs with the architect of the solicitor's office, of the fiscal offices, the administration suite. Every office space that we would be proposing to move to the new building, we toured them through that. We have the square footages, and it's essentially a match in the new building.
So again, I guess my question would be, roughly, would we be doubling the amount of office space that we have?
No, it would not be that much.
Okay, if you can get me, and like, I'm in favor of tabling this, hopefully we can bring this back up, have a little bit more information. That'd be some of the information I'm looking for, that and conceptual layouts of the floor plans. They don't need to be detailed, they don't need to show every, you know, I don't need to see the HVAC plan or I just want to see the layout.
I know.
And then, that's it, thank you.
Thank you. Did you get what he's?
Yeah, and if the plan that was done last year, that largely was a conceptual floor plan. I mean, the hallway spaces would need tweaking and that sort of thing. Like, we don't have actual walls that are, they're not intended for construction, but they are blocking diagrams that show, yes, it does show, I don't know. Yeah, as an example, like, this is what was produced, and it says, human resources, 2,550 square feet. And that's the yellow block here, and that's to scale on the overall footprint of the building.
Wasn't this provided to us already?
Yeah.
Well, maybe he has it.
Well, I did give a
I believe the
presentation
administration gave us a
last year. If
presentation on this, didn't
I can
they?
distribute this.
Well, he's.
I believe
Mr.
that it was at
Heckman,
Mr.
while he's
Kraft's
looking-
committee meeting.
Mr. Heckman has the floor.
Mike, do you have the floor? Oh,
Mr. Heckman has the floor.
oh, thank you. 20 years ago, roughly, when they did the courthouse, and people were up in arms and screaming, burn them at the stake for 47 million or whatever, they were able to break out, not the door handles, but they were able to, before the bond was passed, to break out the costs in the sense of what
Yeah, I saw it.
the furnishings, the budget, and the budget can change. When you got $62 million in a budget, it's going to change. And that, so the thing is, do you have the ability, though, to give estimates? I mean, somebody, somewhere, before we've done any of this, and I know it's not set in stone, our vote's set in stone, but the project, somebody, somewhere can break out numbers. You just said like $10,000 per square foot on the garage. There's a rough estimate of what that'll cost, considering it'll attach to the building. There's a rough estimate based on the materials you're going to use, the cost of the building overall. There's a rough estimate can be given on the furniture we're going to use. And I know inflation, we can get involved in all of that stuff. But I think part of it is, yes, there's pictures with rooms, and that's, I've seen, and they're nice looking rooms. But I don't know how much the budget is for that floor or what you think it'll be for floors. And I think that would go a long way in helping this project move forward, as opposed to going down in flames. And I personally don't want it to go down in flames, even though I know if it went down in flames, some folks would get a lot of mileage on social media. But I think this is too important to do that. Not just you, everybody. I didn't say you did it. Don't get paranoid on me now. You haven't been here that long to get paranoid. I think it would be helpful. I'm just upset. Social media has influenced so many people in elected office and voting. And the hate comes from all over. That's why you have to stop, don't go crazy. But hitting the 3/4 century mark has given me a great perspective. I don't have to care about a lot of that stuff anymore. I'm just proud that I hit 3/4 of a century. And, are you timing me?
Excuse me.
Do it all.
Stay,
Okay. Anyway,
I
so.
have another council member that hasn't spoken yet that wants to speak. So
That's
go ahead,
fair enough.
Finish.
If you can do that, I think it would be helpful. If you can't, you can't. And of course, everything's subject to change to a degree. I mean, how many times have we put out a contract, let's say? And I always say, whatever they say in the contract is add 10%. Because change orders are always coming in, especially on government work. I don't know how many things we've done that we haven't seen a change order. So, that's why lowest bid doesn't always mean that much. And you've seen that. I mean, change orders are par for the course, especially with governments. So do you think that's possible? Let me put it that way.
Well, to an extent, that's already been done. What Skanska did when they estimated it, like they have a cost on here of $268 per square foot.
Okay.
So what they do and what every large, construction management firm does, they have a database for every project that they do, that they just maintain an update with every single project where they said, okay, well, we did a parking deck in the Northeast region 2 years ago, and it came in at this cost. And they're able to track those costs, and then they break it down by each element for constructions. They have the foundations, $12 per square foot. The superstructure.
Okay, so can you do the math, though? I guess that's fine. Can you break it out, do the math, instead of asking the people up here to do the math, and lay out the line item and say, this is what it would cost, this is what it would cost, this is what it would cost? I think sometimes there's a rush to get these things to council and hurry up and do it yesterday. I think the day will come where there'll be council people who say, yes, let's do it yesterday. I'm not there yet, but that's the way it is. So I think if you do that, and I don't think it's going to take you long, I think that would help. But, that's just my opinion.
In fairness to Mr. Mealy, I think there's a lot of still dialogue going on, and if at the end of this we have specific requests for him, we should get those written down to him, because I don't expect him to remember all that. But did you want to respond to what he said first?
Sure, and that's essentially what the estimate that was distributed Tuesday does. I mean, it breaks it down into every possible component for the parking garage.
But we got it Tuesday. Today's Thursday. And that's a trend. I've seen that trend. There's no way in hell I'm going to vote for something for $63 million based on something I got Tuesday on Thursday. I'll just tell you that from me, from my heart, period. So I'll look at that, and if you could print that out for me, I will certainly study it. And if I have any other questions, I'll ask you. Thank you, Mr. Amelie.
Mr. Kapura, go ahead.
Is there money in this budget, as the election offices move and new employees move in there? Are the renovations going to be included in that budget as well?
Yes, that was accounted for in the estimate.
Thank you.
I just want to say, sorry, I guess I don't know if I wasn't here at the meeting when you had this, but yeah, this is exactly what I'm looking for. And Mr. Heckman, the square foot numbers that he's saying, yeah, they're very, I would actually say, would you say 258 or 268? Like,
268.
so I guess that's my question. You said 11 million for the parking deck by estimate? Is
That was just the direct cost of construction, so there's no overhead, profit, bonding, insurance, anything like that. There's no
Okay,
soft
so if we
costs in that
throw
number.
25% on top of 11, I guess I'm wondering, where does the $63 million number come from? Because by your estimates, yeah, 30,000 square foot times 260, that's 7.8 million. Times that by another 20%. Where are we getting $63 million?
That is a great question, and that you should have that answer. And fortunately, we have representatives from PFM and our bond counsel here who I think can round that out a little bit.
Perfect.
So Dave, want to come up and maybe give you
Because,
that
yes,
explanation?
This is the information.
That's what you were looking for. That's what we
And
had
I do
produced
agree
earlier
with
this
Mr.
year.
Heckman, if we've been talking about for, 3 years, when this has been in the idea, get us involved a little earlier so we feel like we can have a little bit more input, but yes, this is informative.
But that was early, though.
Sure. Hello. My name is Garrett Moore with PFM.
I'm sorry, could you say your name again, please?
Yes, ma'am. Garrett Moore with PFM. We're the county's independent financial advisor. Again, rough cost. I'm sure we can get into more details, but based on some preliminary estimates, I think the construction costs related to the parking deck as well as the renovations to the building get you to around, again, I'm speaking approximate numbers, $42 million. To your point, if you add some contingency to that, let's say 20%, that gets you closer to the $50 million number. Plus the buyout of the lease that we were talking about, that's about another $6 million. And that's the lease that you entered into in 2021. So as part of the broader financing plan, we're going to kind of take that debt, shorten it up, save some, cash flow in doing so that we can then more efficiently layer in this new money on top of that.
When does that lease term end?
I believe 41.
So we entered a lease 3 years ago for 20 years?
I think it was the energy savings, the GISA, Guaranteed Energy Savings Agreement lease.
Okay. All right. So, and I guess my disconnect is we keep using this number of like $260 a square foot.
So just to round it out.
For the building, for the office building, right?
Yes, with 42 plus
demolition.
20% round numbers contingency gets you to 50, another $6 million to take out that lease I just mentioned. And then another couple million for kind of the miscellaneous projects that were mentioned, I think, for example, the EMS system and other projects like that. The 63.5 that is shown in the ordinance is slightly greater than the amount we actually plan to finance. So similar to the parameters ordinance that was entered into back in 2019, which I'm sure many of you may remember, per the Department of Economic Development, Department of Community Economic Development, DCED, and under the Local Government Unit Debt Act. In order for us to execute these parameter resolutions, we really need to artificially inflate the amount of the borrowing to give us and the rest of the financing team comprised of your bond counsel, as well as the underwriter, Janney Montgomery Scott, who was the underwriter on the 2019 bonds as well, the flexibility to enter the market and adjust basically the principal repayments in any given year to ultimately get to the desired structure. I say structure, debt structure and debt portfolio that the county has seen and looked at. And I'm referring back to, I think, the meeting that took place on June 18th. So I guess that was the Tuesday meeting, I believe.
As a financial advisor, essentially.
Yes, sir.
Is there any feasible way of being able to do this without taking out a loan and being able to do it with the capital on hand? And then my next question, I'm sure it's in here and in the amortization schedule, but what is the amount of interest that we'll be paying on this on the term of the loan?
So I'll take that last part first, if you don't mind. So one of the parameters that we need to identify and define in the maximum parameters ordinance is one, the maximum borrowing. So that's the $63.5 million. The other thing we need to identify is the maximum interest rate, which per the ordinance is 5.5%. Now, realistically, if we were to enter the market, let's just say hypothetically we entered the market today, for financing of this size, with this term, round numbers 20 years, and with the county's outstanding credit rating of a AA1, and just for clarification, that's one step below AAA, which is the absolute highest credit rating in the country and available, you'd probably be sub 4%, realistically. Again, that's if we were to do it today. We're not planning on doing it today, so there's always interest rate risk. But to answer your question, that's round numbers, the interest rate. To your, and refresh my memory, your earlier question.
I guess my second
Feasibility.
question was, with 5.5% as your projected interest rate, what is the amount of interest we'd pay on the term of the loan?
So 5.5 is, again, the conservative rate that's identified. Based off of the numbers that we had presented back on the 18th, realistically, your run rate, and I don't know if folks have that handout from Tuesday.
Got a lot of papers in front, so if you haven't, you could read it, that'll make our
Sure.
lives a lot easier.
So the ordinance has a total interest expense or total debt service expense of, somebody help me out. Round numbers, $106,500,000. That's column 6. So that's principal and interest, total debt service.
Okay.
Realistically, we would be somewhere much closer to 92 million. And again, that's the number that's outlined in the.
Which brings up the first part of my question. Correct. Is there a feasible way of us doing this without taking the loan? If we are so financially capable of handling a project of this magnitude? I know it's not normal to pay a cash for a project like this, but.
So it's twofold. So I would ultimately defer to the county's administration on the amount of reserves and the feasibility actually paying for all or a large portion of this project via cash. The one thing I will certainly caution you on is, and first let me say this, it is not unreasonable and uncommon for counties to finance projects of this magnitude. For example, a couple months ago, not that it's this size project per se, but Franklin County financed its courthouse project that it's been financing since I think 2020, 2019. They just wrapped up kind of their last borrowing as part of that kind of financing plan to ultimately pay for the courthouse project. So it's not uncommon for counties and local governments in general to finance these larger scale projects over a longer period of time. To the question about using cash and thinking about your credit rating. So your credit rating is similar to your credit score, right? So the higher the rating you have, the lower the interest rate you pay on any borrowings. Let's hypothetically say you took all your available cash reserves and threw it to either downsize or largely pay for this project. That would have a significant impact to your credit rating. Paraphrasing, there's a good likelihood that you'd be downgraded because one of the key, I would say, metrics that Moody's, your credit rating agency, looks at is available reserves, cash on hand, fund balance, et cetera, et cetera. There's a number of other things, but round numbers, 20 to 30% of your rating is just tied to fund balance, for lack of a better word. So to your point, let's hypothetically say you did throw all the cash at it. It would likely have a detrimental impact to your credit rating and therefore impact the cost of any future debt that you may have to take on.
Thank you. You've answered plenty of my questions. Appreciate it very much.
Any other questions?
Yeah, any other questions? I'm happy to stand here as long as this gentleman as well.
Well, I wouldn't even.
So feel free. And if there's any questions regarding the actual specifics of the ordinance, because I know it's long and lengthy, your bond counsel, Mr. Ditka, is here. He can answer in much more eloquent words questions related to the ordinance itself. Yes, sir.
So when Mr. Gofredo asked you the question, you went to the 42 million as to the start of where the kind of the financing rolled up. But those numbers were provided to you by the administration as basic rough estimates and cost of construction, and then you rolled it up from there. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah, so basically.
And I believe those estimates
Your
came from-
job is to find a way to finance what they're asking you to finance, essentially, based on all the conditions you already talked about, cash on hand, reserves, et cetera, current markets and availability of credit financing, or debt financing, rather.
Yes, so correct. We are in no way, shape, or form architects, engineers.
Right, no.
We take the information.
The distinction I want to make is Mr. Gofredo was raising questions about the cost of the project.
Yes, sir.
From the bottom up, where you jumped in at the roll-up and finance, and how to finance it from there. So I do appreciate what you do. I understand what you do for the county, but I think we kind of missed a little bit of the mark that Mr. Gofredo was raising, so thank you.
Yeah, and I would respectfully defer to other more knowledgeable people on the breakdown of that 42.
Making a distinction.
Yes, sir. Correct.
Any other questions or discussion on the matter? Are we calling for the vote tonight, or do we want more time?
I'll make a motion. Table.
May I address some of the
You sure can.
earlier comments?
Yes, you're here to answer.
So I know Mr. Gofredo commented earlier that, he feels that the parking deck has another 10 to possibly 10 years left in it. And just, I say this as someone with a master's in engineering and a licensed engineer in the state of Pennsylvania. I really disagree with that. It was constructed in 1975 with the expectation it would last 35 to 40 years. We're at 49 currently. The 2007 investigation concluded, and this is a direct quote, I can provide you the report, that the county should immediately pursue design and construction of a new parking deck. It was 17 years ago. We've done significant renovation, significant rehabilitation projects in 2010, 2016, and last year for $1.3 million. The deck is at the end of its life. I don't expect like a catastrophic failure in the next year, but it's not going to get any better.
Well, that's my point. I agree. It's going to need to be replaced at some point, but I don't want to have the premise, in which that was the premise that was laid out, that it's falling down, and it's falling out. It's not. It's not falling down. It's not a detrimental hazard to people that are underneath it. That is hyperbolic, in my opinion.
I brought a chunk of concrete, and it wasn't just me being theatrical. I mean, that was legitimately a piece of concrete that fell from the underside of the deck.
Before the repairs or after?
That was before the repairs. But
and
that was last.
Talking for, the water infiltration through the slabs, like that's maintenance that's going to have to be done on a parking deck that has 50 years of life, which, yes, I'm not debating the fact that we need more space. I'm not debating the fact that that is at its point where plans are going to have to be put in place to replace it. But the fact that this is our only plan, $63 million for, a Taj Mahal of what we need, is it what we need? Or could we do it for a third of that? That's the point. That's the only point I'm making. I didn't debate the fact that we need space. I didn't debate the fact that that parking garage is to the point where it's going to be, it's at the end of its life, like you said. I agree with that. I don't think it's falling down. I don't think it's going to kill anybody. And I think saying it is, I think just like saying the elections are insecure, if we don't build a new elections office, I think that's a way of getting an agenda across, and I don't think that's useful.
If I could draw a parallel to a bridge that I know is very near and dear to your heart, Ms. Fargo Hefner.
Don't even do that to me tonight, Mikey.
The Meadows Road Bridge back in 2018. We knew it had some issues, but largely we thought it was fine. And then PennDOT went out to do their inspection, and they called us and said, you need to close this bridge immediately. And it's still, we removed it 2 years ago, and at this point, we're getting ready to start the replacement now. Now, bridges have their own set of permitting issues that extend the timeline, but I don't want to be in a position where something catastrophic were to happen and we don't have a plan in place to construct a new deck. So I'm trying to get ahead of it. Like I said, I don't expect a catastrophic failure tomorrow, but we do have large chunks of concrete that are falling down. It's unlikely that it's going to hit somebody, but it's certainly possible.
I respect your expertise. And I will say right now, everything you ever bring in front of me, Mr. Mealy, I respect the way you present it. I think you do a great job, and I think you're doing a good job here. I'm asking for options. If this is the only option we have, and you're saying we need to spend $63 million, or we're gonna have an election that is insecure and a parking garage that's gonna kill people, I'm gonna just continue to be in a position where it's like, I feel like I got a gun against my head. It's like, pull the trigger, or, you're a bad legislator. I just think that's the wrong way. I feel like we should have been a little bit more involved through the 3 years that this has gone on, so our input could have been taken into consideration, so it didn't feel like this was brought on to us 2 days before we had to vote on it. And that's not your fault. I'm not blaming you for it. I'm just saying you're the one in front of us presenting it, and I'm, giving my feelings towards you, but they're not directed towards you. I respect your opinion. I'll take it into consideration. I'm not negating the fact that we need more space, and I think that garage is at the end of its life. With all that being said, this cannot be the only option. And the price tag, I just want it justified. And I'm still having a hard time getting to $63 million with the square foot numbers and all the other things. And I understand what he had to say. I hear it all. $63 million is a huge sum of money. And I think is easy to say, well, we have to do it. It's what we have to. It's not our money. It's other people's money. And it's really easy to pretend like being self-righteous and we're doing the right thing, but it's not your money. It's other people's money.
I was just going to say how much I appreciate you till you traumatized me with the bridge. No, I'm kidding. I do. I always appreciate the way you present information, and I feel bad that you're the always one that has to give us the bad news, but I always thank you for your frankness and appreciate your expertise, whether I knew where you went to school or not. I like what you do. Any last?
Yeah, one last question for Mr. O'Malley, though. Go ahead.
I just want to say that I don't know why my fellow commissioners were not aware of some of these things, because I did receive this before. We have talked about the bond and our ratings and all of that before. This isn't new. We've been talking about it. And then we have to bring up things that are going to obfuscate the whole idea about I walked around, or I talked to people, or AI is going to be involved, and we're going to have employees that are going to be working from home. All of those things were not variables in this. So it's just obfuscating this whole point, and it's kicking the can down the road. And I don't see the point.
Mr. Kraft?
Mr. O'Malley, if the building garage comes in at $40 million, okay, I'm just throwing a number out there with numbers. And we have $23 million left of this bond issue. That money will be used for, like, I know we need air conditioners in the prison that we haven't done, kicking that can down the road for 1 million years. It'll be used for all other things around the county?
That's correct, yes.
So, and knowing Mr. McClure and how cheap he is, I know he'll make the building cost-effective. And I know you will too, because I've seen you do it with the forensic center. Because I know.
Whatever you want.
Yeah, Mr. Lysick wanted a drive-through garage to bring the tractor-trailer in with all the people who died on the highway. He had all kind of crazy ideas, and they said no. But they were the ideas in this thing. And, I know that Lamont is very frugal when it comes to building, and you are too. You're not going to build something like they wanted over here in the courthouse. When we did the courthouse prison bond, that was the same thing. And what they wanted in the courthouse came out of that prison. That's why it wasn't so high, because they needed fancy wood. We're not doing any of that in this building. In this garage is just a garage, just decks you pack, typical garage. Okay, so if we ended up with 23 million, or say $10 million extra, what would be some of the projects that you could earmark that? You could earmark that to anything in the county that needs to be fixed,
I think he said that.
right?
Yes.
Okay, all right.
Yes, we've done that with other bonds in the past. where
Right, all the
there's-
bonds, until we use them all up. Okay, thank you. I just wanted to make that, it seems like everybody thinks we're gonna build a $63 million building and garage, which
Can
I know
I-
we're not gonna.
Can I be honest with you, though?
Yeah.
Before our discussion and our time tonight, that is the impression that I had.
That you had. Okay.
And it was just, it really was not as focused, like it was his pictures without all of his explanation. And it was like, we're building this is who's moving there, and this is what it's gonna be, and it's gonna be great. So I do appreciate that we've taken the time
Right.
and broken it down. And I think that it would, are you planning to have a capital projects meeting?
Well, we did have this in the capital projects meeting, and we
Are
did
you
go
ha-
over
But
it.
you get to have another one,
Yeah, I'll have
so-
another one. I mean, if we can bring it, but yes, of course, we're gonna have to have a lot of capital project meetings if we start a garage in a building, because we're gonna have to go over all of it, like we did last time. But yes, we will have capital project meetings. Thank you.
Go ahead.
First of all, thank you, Mr. Miller. I mean, I have to say, you have always been straightforward, and you've always been respectful. And I take you as talking straight when you talk. Sometimes we get a bit of condescension coming at us, and a bit of, yeah, okay, I'll make you feel good today, and tomorrow I'll forget it. But you've always been very professional about what you've done. And since we can use some of this money for other things, which of course you can, maybe before that happens, or even if, when you get this bond and get it done, could we please, in line with Mr. McClure's 21st century, bringing the county into it, can we get a better telecommunication system for this council room? I mean, can we get WebEx by Cisco? We've been asking for upwards over 6 years. And
Even that's
first we were told it can't be done, the room is some kind of weird room, you can't do it. And then Vision said, of course you can do it. And so I realize it's not a priority because it's council, but, before we do an ordinance to get it done, maybe we could get some assurance that we'll have a better system. I can be on boards, went to a township, people can interact on screens. There's no 10-second delay from YouTube to your phone, which you can't hear anyway. Could some of that money hopefully be diverted to enhancing the county government's communication devices?
I think that could be arranged.
Coming from you, thank you very much.
Madam President, can I make a motion to table this for the next meeting so we have 2 weeks to discuss this amongst ourselves and do a little bit more due diligence? I know that's what I would like, to be able to vote on this with a clear conscience, because otherwise I feel like I'm voting without being completely informed on the matter.
I've heard a motion to table. Is there a
Second.
second? Mr. Kapoor is a second. No further discussion. Call for the vote.
Mr. Gofredo?
Yes.
Mr. Corpora?
Yes.
Mr. Heckman?
Yes.
Ms. Keegan?
No.
Mr. Kraft?
Yes.
Ms. Fargo Hefner?
Yes.
Mr. Warren?
No.
Mr. Brown?
No.
Mr. Giovanni?
Yes.
Motion passes by a vote of 6-3.
So what I would suggest is, if we, again, have things we definitely want, get them to Ms. Shafnisky so she could get them to the appropriate bodies, whether it's finance. If you want to introduce yourself, because you've been patiently here, you want to say hi? Do you want a cup of coffee before you go? Like,
That's kind. Hi, my name's Anthony Didka. I serve as the bond counsel for the county. I did for the projects in 2019. Also, I'm in from the firm of Dinsmore and Scholl. And so to the extent anyone has questions in the next 2 weeks, I'm happy to field them.
and it doesn't have to be 2 weeks. I mean, like, 2 weeks is the July 3rd meeting. If you really want to rush, I'm happy to wait till we could have finance, till you could have a capital project, get everything answered, and then get it done, and so everybody here feels comfortable. There's no harm in waiting till the middle of July. We're not going to upset the whole financial plan of the universe.
No, the only caveat being, it's just a little extra interest rate risk, but no, it won't upset the apple cart.
Well, the Treasury came out and said they're not going to do any increases. In fact, even though inflation's still there, they might actually drop it. So I don't think this is going to have an impact on our overall interest.
I would tend to agree with you, however, I've been wrong pretty much daily over the past
Well, I
couple
can
years.
only go by the
Why do we
Treasury
have you
guy.
here? What are you doing here?
Keep in mind, I'm not the decision maker here.
Oh, all right, well, I wouldn't sell yourself that way. Thank you.
The only procedural thing that might have to be done is, we have to do advertisements under your home rule charter, but we also have to do them under the Local Government Unit Debt Act. The advertisement that we did that summarized the ordinance under the Local Government Unit Debt Act is good for 30 days from the date of its publication. It was published on June 11th. So if no vote was taken on the 3rd, we would have to just run another ad. So procedurally, yes, there is something to be done, but it's minor. It's get an ad in the paper.
I'll leave you two to
You got it.
converse with our solicitor about that, because I'd rather do the.
None of
due
it's a problem. I
diligence.
just want to make sure it was clear. There is at least a small procedural step to be taken.
That's perfect, thank you. Moving on, new business, or is there any other old business? I apologize. Hearing none, we'll move on to new business. Consideration of county executive's reappointment resolution, Area Agency on Aging Advisory Council. Mr. Giovanni, will you introduce the resolution?
Yes, I will, Mr. President. Resolved by the Northampton County Council that the following individual shall be confirmed in her reappointment as indicated hereafter. Area Agency of the Aging Advisory Council, reappointment, Anne Marie C. Pinella, 15 Mark Lane, Easton, PA, 18045. Term to expire 6/30/26.
Any discussion on the matter? Call for the vote?
Mr. Giovanni?
Yes.
Mrs. Keegan? Mr. Kraft? Mrs. Fargo Hefner?
Yes.
Mr. Warren?
Yes.
Mr. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Corpora?
Yes.
Mr. Gafredo?
Yes.
Mr. Heckman?
Yeah.
Passes by a vote of 9-0.
Thank you. Next, we have the consideration of personnel request resolution from the District Attorney's Office. Mr. Giovanni, please.
Yes, President. It is hereby resolved by the Northampton County Council that one full-time position of administrative assistant, pay grade, CS/CR17/6-F, salary $50,941 shall be created in the District Attorney's Office effective June 21, 2024. It is further resolved by the Northampton County Council that one new hire, full-time position of the District Attorney, one, pay grade CE/GR-03/1-A, salary $67,828 shall be upgraded to one, full-time position of District Attorney 1, pay grade CE/GR-03/3C, salary $74,070 in the District Attorney's Office effective June 21, 2024. It is further resolved by the County Council that one existing full-time position of Assistant District Attorney, one, pay grade CE/GR-03/1-A, salary $67,828 shall be upgraded to one full-time position of District Attorney 1, pay grade CE/GR-03/3-C, salary $74,070 in the District Attorney's Office effective June 1st, 2024.
Thank you. Any discussion?
None for me.
This was discussed yesterday at personnel. If none, call for the vote.
Mr. Giovanni?
Yes.
Mr. Kraft? Yes. Ms. Fargo Hefner?
Yes.
Mr. Warren?
Yes.
Mr. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Corpora?
Yes.
Mr. Gafredo?
Yes.
Mr. Heckman?
Yes.
Mrs. Keegan?
Yes.
Adopted by a vote of 9-0.
Next, we have consideration of livable landscape grant projects resolutions. There are several. Ms. Keegan?
Okay.
You don't need to read it all, so do your best and
Okay.
pick and choose.
All right. So now therefore be it resolved, the Northampton County Council hereby approves the Lower Mount Bethel Township grant application for the LMBT Trail System Storm Damage Reconstruction Project. Further, the Northampton County Executive, through the Office of the Program Administrator of the Northampton County Livable Landscapes Grant Program in the Division of the Parks and Recreation, Department of Public Works, or his designee, is authorized to take any and all steps necessary to administer and complete Northampton County's obligation in this project. The Northampton County Council further authorizes the Northampton County Executive to appropriate $75,000 of OSI municipal park funds as the Northampton County contribution to the LMBT Trail System Storm Damage Reconstruction Project. Should any amount be less than the sum approved by County Council, the remaining balance should be placed back into the appropriate fund from which it was allocated.
Thank you. Any discussion on the matter? Call for the vote.
Mrs. Keegan,
Yes.
Ms. Fargo Hefner.
Yes.
Mr. Warren,
Yes.
Mr. Brown.
Yes.
Mr. Corpora.
Yes.
Mr. Giovanni.
Yes.
Mr. Gafredo.
Yes.
Mr. Heckman.
Yes.
Mr. Kraft. Adopted by a vote of 9-0.
Thank you. Next, we have the Sycamore Park equipment replacement. Ms. Keegan again.
Now, therefore be it resolved, the Northampton County Council hereby approves the Upper Nazareth Township grant application for the Sycamore Park equipment replacement. Further, the Northampton County Executive, through the Office of the Program Administrator of the Northampton County Livable Landscapes Grant Program, in the Division of Parks and Recreation, Department of Public Works, or his designee, is authorized to take any and all steps necessary to administer and complete Northampton County's obligation in this project. The Northampton County Council further authorizes the Northampton County Executive to appropriate $120,000 of OSI municipal park funds as the Northampton County contribution to the Sycamore Park equipment replacement. Should any amount be less than the sum approved by County Council, the remaining balance shall be placed back into the appropriate fund from which it was allocated.
Thank you. Any discussion? Call for the vote.
Mrs. Keegan,
Yes.
Mr. Warren,
Yes.
Mr. Brown.
Yes.
Mr. Corpora.
Yes.
Mr. Giovanni.
Yes.
Mr. Gafredo.
Yes.
Mr. Heckman.
Yes.
Mr. Kraft. Ms. Fargo Hefner.
Yes.
Adopted by a vote of 9-0.
Next, we have the Newburgh Park tree planting. Ms. Keegan?
Now therefore be it resolved, the Northampton County Council hereby approves the Lower Nazareth Township grant application for the Newburgh Park tree planting. Further, the Northampton County Executive, through the Office of the Program Administrator of the Northampton County Livable Landscapes Grant Program, in the Division of Parks and Recreation, Department of Public Works, or his designee, is authorized to take any and all steps necessary to administer and complete Northampton County's obligations in this project. The Northampton County Council further authorizes the Northampton County Executive to appropriate $29,343 of OSI municipal park funds as a Northampton County contribution to the Newburgh Park planting. Should any amount be less than the sum approved by County Council, the remaining balance shall be placed back into the appropriate fund from which it was allocated.
Thank you. Any discussion? Call for the
I have
vote.
discussion.
Oh, yes, sir.
Just for the next three resolutions, since the only thing that's different is the name of the project and the price amount, can we expedite it by simply reading the name of the project and the price amount for the next three?
Sure. Is that allowed? Is that allowed, Paul?
That's it.
All right, let's vote on this one. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yep.
Be lovely.
Mrs. Keegan,
Yes.
Mr. Brown,
Yes.
Mr. Corpora.
Yes.
Mr. Giovanni.
Yes.
Mr. Gafredo.
Yes.
Mr. Heckman.
Yes.
Mr. Kraft. Ms. Fargo Hefner.
Yes.
Mr. Warren.
Yes.
Adopted by a vote of 9-0.
I wish we could do them all in one, but we can't, so thank you. The revitalization of D&L Trail and Canal Park. So why don't you read the amount and
Okay.
the name?
So I'll just, now therefore be it resolved, the Northampton County Council hereby approves the Borough of Northampton grant application for the revitalization of the D&L Trail in Canal Park. Further authorizes the Northampton County Executive to appropriate $50,000 of the Livable Landscapes funds. Blah, blah, blah. Is that enough for you? Is that good?
Does it work for you? Call for the discussion? Call for the vote.
Mrs. Keegan,
Yes.
Mr. Corpora.
Yes.
Mr. Giovanni.
Yes.
Mr. Gafredo.
Yes.
Mr. Heckman.
Yeah.
Mr. Kraft.
Yes.
Ms. Fargo Hefner.
There are
Yes.
two crafts.
Brown,
Mr. Warren.
Yes.
Mr. Brown. Adopted by a vote of 9-0.
Okay.
Where are we? Greenway Trail Gap Acquisition, City of Bethlehem.
Okay, now therefore be it resolved, the Northampton County Council hereby approves the City of Bethlehem grant application for the Greenway Trail Gap acquisition. for the county executive to appropriate $300,000 of the livable landscapes.
Discussion, call for the vote.
Mrs. Keegan?
Yes.
Mr. Giovanni?
Yes.
Mr. Gafredo?
Yes.
Mr. Heckman?
Yes.
Mr. Kraft? Yes. Ms. Fargo Hefner?
Yes.
Mr. Warren?
Yes.
Mr. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Corpora?
Yes.
Adopted by a vote of 9-0.
Thank you. And next we have Metzger Fields Trail Planning Project.
Okay, now therefore be it resolved by the Northampton County Council, approves the Lafayette College grant application for the Metzger Fields Trail Planning Project in the amount of $75,000.
Discussion, call for the vote.
Mrs. Keegan?
Yes.
Mr. Gafredo?
Yes.
Mr. Heckman?
Yes.
Mr. Kraft? Ms. Fargo Hefner?
Yes.
Mr. Warren?
Yes.
Mr. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Corpora?
Yes.
Mr. Giovanni?
Yes.
Adopted by a vote of 9-0.
And next, we have the consideration of a resolution facilitating the application in support of Gall Farm Preserve Phase 1 Development Grant. Ms. Keegan,
Okay.
have fun. This is,
Now, therefore, it is hereby resolved by the Northampton County Council. The Northampton County Council hereby approves the Gall Farm Preserve Phase 1 Development Grant application to the Pennsylvania Department of Conservation and Natural Resources. Further, the Northampton County Executive, through the Office of the Program Administrator of the Northampton County Livable Landscapes Program, or he or she designee, is directed to take any and all steps necessary to administer and complete Northampton County's obligation in this project. Further, the Northampton County Executive, through the Office of the Northampton County Division of Parks and Recreation, or his or her designee, is directed to take any and all steps necessary to administer and complete Northampton County's obligation in this project. If the applicant is awarded a grant, the county executive or his or her, as the officials, is authorized to execute all documents and agreements between the County of Northampton and the Commonwealth Financing Authority to facilitate and assist in obtaining the requested grant.
thank you. Any discussion? Call for the vote.
Mrs. Keegan?
Yes.
Mr. Heckman?
Yes.
Mr. Kraft? Yes. Ms. Fargo Hefner?
Yes.
Mr. Warren?
Yes.
Mr. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Corpora?
Yes.
Mr. Giovanni?
Yes.
Mr. Gafredo?
Yes.
Adopted by a vote of 9-0.
Next, we have consideration of resolution in support of CCAP mental health funding priorities. Rather than reading the whereases, I've discussed this before, and this has been pressed and a push by our state organization to ask for the increase of these funds. So now, therefore, it is hereby resolved that Northampton County calls on the governor and General Assembly to make a significant state investment in rebuilding Pennsylvania's mental health system by increasing the county mental health base by $250 million in the fiscal year 2024-25 budget. It is further resolved, Northampton County calls on the governor and General Assembly to commit to a long-term plan of further increases over the next 5 to 10 years to pull Pennsylvania's mental health system from the point of collapse to a system that fully meets needs. It is further resolved that a copy of this resolution be sent to Northampton County's legislative delegation, to Governor Shapiro, and to the County Commissioners Association of Pennsylvania. Any discussion?
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
I think, as I said, I'm glad CCAP's doing this. I'm sure Mr. Kraft could attest to the fact that much of our mental health system now is the prisons, local prisons. It's one thing for governors or presidents, whatever, run around handing out checks, doing photo ops, but this is the guts of it. I mean, we have almost a broken mental health system. And whatever your politics are, this is critical. I mean, I don't think with social media and AI, it's going to get any better. It's going to exacerbate the problem that already exists. So I would hope, I know CCAP, we've done this over the years many times, and as Crest, I would hope the governor and the General Assembly, please take this seriously, because we're hurting at the local level trying to deal with these issues.
I mean, with respect to the governor's budget, he has included the mental health funding. It's just not at the level that county needs. And because it was so direly underfunded for so long, it's very hard to make up the gap. So that's why we keep on this press. And anybody who has relationships with anybody here or in other parts of the state and the legislature, please make the call and put the press on. because how it breaks out, you know, without this is peanuts in terms of dollars and cents. So, any other questions? Call for the vote.
Ms. Vargo Hefner.
Yes.
Mrs. Keegan.
Yes.
Mr. Kraft. Mr. Warren.
Yes.
Mr. Brown.
Yes.
Mr. Corpora.
Yes.
Mr. Giovanni.
Yes.
Mr. Gafredo.
Yes.
Mr. Heckman.
Yes.
Adopted by a vote of 9-0.
Thank you. Next, we have consideration of a resolution in support of LGBTQ+ Pride Month. Ms. Keegan, would you introduce?
Yep, I'm proud to introduce this resolution. Whereas the Northampton County Council welcomes and encourages diversity and inclusion within our community, and whereas June 28th, 2021 marks the 52nd anniversary of the Stonewall Uprising in New York City, which sparked the gay rights movement, and June is the nationwide month to recognize the lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer, questioning plus community. And whereas celebrating Pride Month raises awareness and provides support and advocacy for the LGBTQ+ community, and is an opportunity to become educated, engage in dialogue, strengthen alliances, and build understanding. And whereas while there has been remarkable progress towards acceptance and equality, members of the LGBTQ+ community continue to face discrimination, intolerance, and hate. And whereas we must commit to supporting and accepting LGBTQ+ individuals, in particular our youth, who compared to their peers are far more likely to experience violence and bullying at school, to suffer from depression, to struggle with substance use, and to have attempted suicide. And whereas we must remain vigilant in deterring oppression and discrimination against people on the basis of sex, gender identity or expression, or sexual orientation, and whereas by protecting the rights of every individual, we enhance and strengthen the value of everyone throughout our entire society. And whereas in a landmark opinion, Bostock versus Clayton County, 590 U.S. 644, 2020, decided on June 15, 2020, the United States Supreme Court recognized that discrimination because of sex was in the violation of Title VII of the Civil Rights Act of 1964, and that the term sex was inclusive of actual or perceived sexual orientation or gender identity, and federal law prohibits all sex-based discrimination in employment and education. And whereas we affirm our support for LGBTQ+ residents in our community and stand with them to protect their civil rights and their ability to live openly, equally, and without fear. And now, therefore be it resolved that Northampton County recognizes and supports the month of June as LGBTQ+ Pride Month, and we urge all residents to celebrate and build a culture of inclusiveness and acceptance during this month and every month.
Thank you. Is there any discussion regarding the matter?
Yeah, I got something.
Mr. Gafredo?
I feel like we're getting in the habit of bringing up topics like this that A, has no teeth, no purpose. I don't understand what this is for. I don't understand why it's coming in front of county. It's not county business. And, you know, everybody has personal thoughts on a lot of these things, but the fact that we're overly sexualizing everything, and especially our kids, and now we're bringing it into county government, I just don't understand why we have to do these things. I feel like we have county business on this agenda, things that are tangible, things that affect the county, and regardless of your position on this, what is this accomplishing? That's my question, other than be able to draw a line and say, oh, they didn't vote for that resolution, so then you can get to other people. And I'm getting tired of it. It's so identity politics, and identity politics does nothing but destroy and divide. And it seems like that's the purpose of this. So I will not be supporting this because this has nothing to do with what we do here at all.
Any further discussion? Mr. Warren?
Mr. Gafredo, do you believe that we should not recognize January as Blood Donor Awareness Month? We have nothing to do with blood donations here. It was the first thing I introduced when I was elected because of what Miller Keystone Blood Center means to me, what blood donations mean to our community, saving lives, and it has an impact on people's lives. If you recognize a month, it does have an impact, a positive impact, where folks institutions, organizations, groups know that they're recognized by their leaders. If you don't want to support Blood Donor Awareness Month in January, because I'm going to be doing it in January of 2025, frankly, as well, and that's your prerogative, of course, but I think it's, every now and again, it's appropriate, like I said, to bring up things that matter to folks in our community.
Mr. Warren, let me ask you a question. Do you believe in separation of church and state?
Absolutely.
Do you think that what happened in Louisiana yesterday was against that violation?
Well, I'm not an attorney.
I think they basically said they have to post the Ten Commandments.
Ten Commandments, yeah, and I'm not an attorney.
I believe that there's a good reason why we have separation of church. I'm a Catholic. I have a strong faith in my religion, but I do not let my religious beliefs affect what goes on here because it's a different venue. This is almost like religion anymore. This is a religion. It is. I have strong disagreements with what we're doing with kids, with the trans movement. I think it's doing a lot of damage, and I don't think anybody talks about it because they're afraid of getting yelled at. And I think it is destructive, and I think it's the opposite of acceptance. But we're doing it, and nobody's talking about it because it's politically incorrect. And that's what we do here, bringing up things that are politically incorrect to make people make positions on them, and that's identity politics. We are so in the middle of it, and look, we're taking away from what we're supposed to be doing right now by talking about this. But you asked me if I support Blood Awareness Month of January. I didn't know that was a thing. I honestly don't, because you know what? I get up, I go to work, I have to do the job. I don't know what month the Blood Awareness Month is. I didn't know what Pride Month was until all of a sudden now it's everywhere on TV all the time. There's no Catholic Awareness Month. There's no Italian Heritage Month. There's Columbus Day, but it's getting repurposed as Indigenous People Day because it's politically incorrect.
There is Italian Heritage Month.
I'm Italian. I don't know because I don't get hung up on these things. It's nonsense. I love the fact that we have a free country where somebody who's gay, lesbian, bi, they can go do what they want and do as they will. But the fact that we're talking about it while we're also talking about, Lower Mount Bethel Township Trail System damage reconstruction project. Do you see the difference there? The
No,
stark
we are
contrast?
getting that done too.
Ms. Keegan, you are not recognized, nor are you talking right now, so please wait your turn.
Sure.
No, I will not support this because I don't like what it enters into. It enters us into this fact that now all of a sudden we're dipping our toes in things that have nothing to do with county business. And I think the reason why federal government's a mess and that state government's becoming messier is because we're indulging in these areas of conversation that do nothing but divide. And that's why we're arguing about it. It's really easy to get 9-0 things on things that make sense that everybody can agree on because, yeah, we need the Area of Aging Advisory Council to be reappointed. But this is divisive, and it's not accomplishing anything except for creating an argument. So for those reasons, I will not support it.
Ms. Keegan, would you like to be recognized?
I would love that. So all of this business that we are doing, we are getting that done. So just because I bring forth a resolution that has to do with this month that is inclusive of people that I love, people that are in my professional realm, my personal realm, they would like to know that they're being supportive. I have gone to Pride events. I have gone to more Pride events because they're increasing in this county. And as I am attending these Pride events, the attendance is increasing as well. So people would like to feel that their elected officials they include them, that they support them. And actually, it upsets me when people in our community say hateful things towards this community, but it upsets me even more when our elected officials in this county do the same and worse. Elected officials need to keep their constituents safe, and using social media, talk about social media, to spread hate and misinformation is not acceptable. It is shameful that it occurs, and it was brought to my attention that it's happening at this county level here among this board. I have printouts here of anti-LGBTQ posts accusing supporters of sexually grooming children. So people have come to me, and they're upset.
Are you making an allegation to somebody?
She has the floor, she has the floor, she has the floor.
Why don't you just say it?
What?
What allegate? Who? Are you talking about me? Are you talking about somebody here? Just say it.
Just saying, somebody, I
Do it,
mean, I
say it.
can. I have the printouts right here.
Show it.
But people are coming to me, And
No, this is ridiculous.
No, 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 Okay.
This is ridiculous.
Wait,
I'm getting addressed, apparently? You talking about me?
Look.
What a disaster.
Look, everybody gets the right to talk.
my constituents are coming to me, and they are scared because they have elected officials in this county that are posting anti-LGBTQ posts. So I brought this resolution forward in support of them. And if you don't want to support these people, then vote no.
So here's what I have to say about this. I appreciate that you did that. Years ago, we tried to have was it an ordinance, Ron?
Yes, it was an ordinance.
That we wanted to vote to
But we
include
had to
that
do a referendum.
language.
Yes, it was an ordinance.
We wanted it on a referendum to include that language in the Home Rule Charter. Because again, what do we know when there's Swiss cheese holes in the Home Rule Charter? And we were told that it was not to be done, that it was bad to do, because that people would feel like people were voting for or against them on a referendum. So we pulled it. So I have no problem when you do a resolution that's designating something as a month, or that if we had something like the last one where there's a bill and we want to write it in support of or not to a government body supporting that. So I will be supporting this. But our other council members have the right to vote exactly as they feel and express the way they feel without being attacked. We both and all do. And so unless somebody has something that they are going to die if they don't say, I would like to move to vote on this at this time. Well then,
Because I was here when you mentioned that. Yeah, we were viciously attacked. And one of the points being made by a proponent of not doing it on the charter referendum was you're letting people vote on whether people have rights or not, because it's established law. If I heard established law one time, I heard it 1,000 times. Well, so was Roe v. Wade, established law, at least in my opinion, until the Supreme Court came along and said it wasn't. So I think, you know, I was upset. I didn't bring it forward, but I was upset not only that it didn't pass, but that people who wanted to do it were literally attacked. You talk about getting attacked, they were attacked and demeaned as somehow they were against the LGBTQ community for even suggesting it, because it was established law. Established law is whatever some Supreme Court majority wants to do at any given time. I will say this, I am going to support it. A friend of mine at college was gay in the late 60s, well, 70, and he wasn't Stonewall when this all went down, but he'd go up to New York, and he had a tough life. I mean, but things changed for him, and I'm happy. I'm happy. So, I mean, in general, sure. I think one of the problems we have is we get so involved in other people's lives, like just be chill. Let people be people. I mean, you know, at the end of the day, I don't know. I'm sure, I do know that there's a lot of things people would say about me, but I mean, I don't know. I mean, at this point in my life, I don't know if I've hit everything on that, but I've met and had friends who pretty much cover that spectrum. And I had other friends, and you brought up a good point, who, for religious reasons, and not, I've brought up Catholic too, so the nuns beat on me. But the thing is, we were all good friends, and they dropped this person because they transitioned. They said they cannot in good faith even talk to the person anymore. So I find that troubling. I mean, even if I didn't think it was a smart or wise move, that's my opinion, but I don't have to run out and scream it. But I mean, I do want to see the people have the right to be themselves if they're not hurting anybody else. And I'm going to support your resolution. I think it's a good idea.
Mr. Giovanni.
I'm going to vote for it because I have family down in this county. But I don't go to their marchings, their things. But I do talk to them. I respect them. I will support this because of my family. But again, this is not county business. It's not county business. When are we going to get that? We're not in a municipality anymore. We're in a county. County business needs to be done. That's what we're after. But I will support this.
Last thing, quickly.
Well, Mr. Warren.
Okay.
It's going to be real easy to vote yes on this, and everybody's going to be able to be called a bigot if they vote no on it. I have family that's gay, absolutely. I have cousins, more than one. And I love them, and I'm supportive of their lifestyle. I have no problem with it. What I have a problem is the fact that this is becoming to the point where we're sexualizing everything, including children, all the time. And I can't in good faith bring this in front of county council and say that we're doing something good for people when it's so easy to just say yes, get along with it, nobody gets looked at. But I'm gonna say no for the two reasons that I said before. I think this has gone to a point where, I think there is harm being done in some places. I really do. And I think that nobody wants to talk about it. I'll be the first one to say, I do believe that there's being harm done to children.
Thank you, Madam President. The real harm is that 45% of youth who are LGBTQ and identify as such try to commit suicide. And if we do end up passing this, if even a couple families get wind of the fact that we collectively, or even if there are a few no votes, that we pass this, the recognition of that, where a parent can then go to a child and say, your county government, or these leaders in our community support this specific month. The recognition, just the recognition of the month can go a long way. It can, especially for those 45% of LGBTQ plus youth who try to kill themselves every single year.
Call for the vote.
Mrs. Keegan?
Yes.
Mr. Kraft? Yes. Ms. Fargo Hefner?
Yes.
Mr. Warren?
Yes.
Mr. Brown?
No.
Mr. Corpora?
Yes.
Mr. Giovanni?
Yes.
Mr. Gafredo?
No.
Mr. Heckman?
Yes.
Adopted by a vote of 7-2.
Thank you. Next, we have consideration of Administrative Code, Article 13, Contract Resolutions. Mr. Heckman, I hope your whistle is wet because you have CCAP first.
Yeah, let me
Would you
whistle.
please introduce the...
Let me wet my whistle. Okay, we're ready.
Go ahead, introduce it.
All right. Can I just do the now therefore?
You could do whatever you want.
I've said before, you can read this, it's pretty straightforward. If you have a question as you glance down, this is no big bond, it's just a few little things. Now therefore be it resolved that the Northampton County Council does hereby concur with the recommendation of the county executive as set forth in the attached documentation to approve a contract with CCAP. And if you look, it's there, we've had this before, P Corp, so there you go.
Thank you. Any discussion? We did discuss this yesterday at Finance. P Corp provides our insurance. Call for the vote.
Mr. Heckman?
Yes.
Ms. Fargo Hefner?
Yes.
Mr. Warren?
Yes.
Mr. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Corpora?
Yes.
Mr. Giovanni?
Yes.
Mr. Gafredo?
Yes.
Ms. Keegan? Yes. Mr. Kraft? Yes. Adopted by a vote of 9-0.
Next, we have D&M Construction Unlimited, Inc., Hirschberg Mechanical, Wind Gap Electric. Mr. Heckman.
Okay. Now therefore be it resolved that the Northampton County Council does hereby concur with the recommendation of the county executive as set forth in the attached documentation to approve the contract for jail capital projects with D&M Construction Unlimited, Inc., Hirschberg Mechanical, and Wind Gap Electrical. And it's attached, gives you all the numbers, and this one's for Mr. Kraft.
Any discussion?
Yeah, one thing.
Yes.
Once again, for 4 different scopes of work, we have 6 bids received, 2 for GC, 2 for electric, 1 for HVAC, and 1 for plumbing. I will not support this bid, or this resolution. Even though I want the work to be done, I just don't think we have a good bidding process at this time.
Any other discussion? Call for the vote.
Mr. Heckman?
Yes.
Mr. Warren?
Yes.
Mr. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Corpora?
Yes.
Mr. Giovanni?
Yes.
Mr. Gafredo?
No.
Mrs. Keegan? Yes. Mr. Kraft? Ms. Fargo Hefner?
Yes.
Adopted by a vote of 8-1.
Next, we have Allied Personnel Services.
Yeah. Now therefore be it resolved that the Northampton County Council does hereby concur with the recommendation of the county executive as set forth in the attached documentation to approve a contract with Allied Personnel Services, Inc. Again, the worksheet's attached. Here we are.
Thank you. Any discussion? Call for the vote.
Mr. Heckman?
Yes.
Mr. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Corpora?
Yes.
Mr. Giovanni?
Yes.
Mr. Gafredo?
Yes.
Mrs. Keegan? Yes. Mr. Kraft? Ms. Vargo Hefner.
Yes.
Mr. Warren.
Yes.
Adopted by a vote of 9-0.
Thank you. Engel, Hambright, and Davies, Inc. Mr. Heckman?
Now therefore be it resolved that the Northampton County Council does hereby concur with the recommendation of the county executive as set forth in the attached documentation to approve a contract with Engel, Hambright, and Davies, Inc. Submitted. And I don't know if we've ever not supported or concurred with that submitted.
Any discussion?
No.
Call for the vote.
Mr. Heckman.
Yes.
Mr. Corpora.
Yes.
Mr. Giovanni.
Yes.
Mr. Gifredo.
Yes.
Mrs. Keegan. Yes. Mr. Kraft. Yes. Ms. Vargo Hefner.
Yes.
Mr. Warren.
Yes.
Mr. Brown.
Yes.
Adopted by a vote of 9-0.
Thank you. Is there any other new business to discuss? Any council committee reports? I'll start with Mr. G and work around.
We had a Personnel Committee meeting on Tuesday. Of that committee, we nominated, reappointed Marie Purnell, and we also gave the District Attorney Barada some employee movement. And we also, I want to say, don't forget, by July 3rd, we need, if there's any additions to the clerk or the county or the deputy clerk, job description or salaries, I need them by July 3rd.
Thank
Thank
you. On Tuesday, we also had the election committee, and we had a discussion and update on what happened in the last election, and as well as discussion from Arturo Mendez, who's with CISA, and discussed how he has been working with the administration to determine risks and risk management for the upcoming election. Also had a discussion on the Election Commission and their rights and authority. And we are also awaiting, but we're assured that we would have the DA referendum on the ballot in the fall. And we are waiting for the Election Commission to have a meeting, and I was assured that that meeting would take place in a timely way so that it would be on the ballot. That's it. And
I have one.
Ms. Keegan and then Mr. Heckman.
Go ahead,
Okay.
go.
This is for the Energy, Environment, and Land Use Committee. We had an update from Penn State Agricultural Extension regarding water quality within the county. Discussion on livable landscapes, DCNR grant application projects, and a discussion on greenways, trails, and recreation program grant application, the Gall Farm Preserve Phase 1 development.
Thank you. Mr. Heckman?
We had a Finance Committee meeting on Tuesday. We discussed a potpourri of fiscal issues, some of which, the fruits of which were born tonight. That's
Thank
my
you.
report.
Are there any county liaison reports? Oh, wait, can I ask a question? Under council committee, is anybody planning on having their committee meetings on July 3rd? Going once, going twice?
I'm going to push human resource services off for another month.
Okay.
Yeah.
We're off the 4th. Our meeting is on the 3rd, which I will announce at the end, but we generally have committees before that, so I just need to know if anybody was planning on hosting their committee meeting. All right, thank you. Liaison reports. None? I went to stuff and I don't remember, so I'll report next time. How's that? Because I can't remember what day it is right now. Council clerk's report?
None.
Council solicitor's report?
Nothing.
Motion to adjourn?
Motion.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
We are adjourned. Thank you very much. Mr. Gaylor, did you get your soundbite for this evening? I believe it was called Be Chill.